Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto and Kyuubi comes closer after experiencing near death part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. As a certain blonde ninja sat on the Hokage monument, his legs dangling over the sheer drop below him, he considered how it had come to this, what he was to do. Probably that day, he mused. Flashback, Naruto age 8, October 10th. Pain and again pain flashed through the youngster's mind after receiving yet another beating. Blood was his next thought, lots of that too. As his vision darkened, a mask Anbu was all he saw, then darkness. Naruto's mindscape. Am I dead? Was his first thought. His second was why am I ankle deep in water? Followed by what is going on? Followed by man those have got to hurt as he came face to face with claws, big claws at that. Then he saw what was attached to the other end of those claws, a monstrous fox, far larger than the boy, with 9 tails and demonic crimson eyes. Finally you come, young one. Stunned silence met the demonic growl, pin drop kind of silence. And you are? Was the hesitant reply. Laughter filled the sewer-like room, a demonic laugh, amused demonic laughter. I believe that in your world I am known as Kyuubi. The fainting blonde was the response to this statement. Perhaps I should have eased him into this one, mused the demon. It was amusing though, as the boy hit the ground. Real world. Naruto's apartment, a day later, October 11th. Light met the youngster's eyes as he slowly awoke. Where am I? Back home, was the reply. The warm kind face of the third Hokage met the young blonde's eyes. Oh, groaned the blonde, sitting up. Very bad idea, he thought, as soon as coherent thought was possible. Easy there, warned the old man, it's only been 5 hours since you were attacked, even you can't have healed that fast, a day at the least. It was quite bad this time. The sigh met the end of the statement before a smile came to the boy's face. No class for me, then, huh? I can have you healed in an hour. Naruto paled. Perhaps you best rest some more, frowned the old man. Yeah, will do, old man. The boy's voice had a slight waver to it. Well then I best get back to my work, said the old Hokage as he left the youngster. What he had left him to that would remain a mystery. For the boy's mask to have cracked that badly, whatever it has got to be bad. Healed in an hour was all the blonde Jinchuriki could think before his vision went black. Present time. Naruto made his way down from the Hokage monument, still lost in thought. That was when I first started becoming stronger. I never showed it though, I always let people think I was weak, aside from that one time, it was an accident though, that event was the catalyst to everything. Flashback, after the first Genin exam at the academy. As he sat on the swing, emotion swirled through Naruto. For the 3rd time in a row he had failed the exam. Why can't I do it? Anger at his own inability raged through the Jinchuriki. Simple, you simply have too much chakra, it leaves you unable to do basic jutsu, which means you need more advanced forms of the jutsu. Replied Kyuubi. Is that bad or good? Asked the blonde. In terms of the simpler jutsu, bad. However, for more complicated jutsu, decidedly good. Oh, in terms of Oni jutsu for example, fantastic. You should have just let loose with Oni K's and be done with it. Naruto's ear twitched as he heard someone approach. Ninja, Chunin. The thought came to his head as he turned to meet Mizuki, a Chunin instructor at the academy. The surprise Mizuki showed on his face told Naruto that he had been attempting to sneak up on him. You've got good hearing, I see. Adebayo, came the cheerful response. He mentally cursed for the slip. Demonic laughter rang in his head. At least someone found it funny, because more laughter rang in his head. Ever since the incident when he was 8, he had been able to talk to Kyuubi at will. Kyuubi also gave him some useful traits, heightened hearing, heightened smell, sharper sight, and an arsenal of deadly Oni jutsu. The heightened smell caused the most problems, albeit entertaining. Sakura and Ino tended to have a slightly different smell when they went near Sasuke, and in fact most people tended to smell different when around certain people. For example, Hinata smelled different when she was near him. When Naruto found a book on it during one of his nightly excursions to the library, he found it hilarious after he recovered from the nosebleed. The nosebleed that would start almost every time he smelt that particular smell for the next few days. Mizuki sat on the swing next to Naruto. You know, there is another way to become a genin. Naruto replied with a grin, and the words, "This is going to be fun," came into his head. Indeed it is. Present day. The blonde reached the bottom of the Hokage monument and set off. Thinking to himself, that was the first time I deceived someone. I could tell Mizuki was trying to deceive me, which made it even better. Flashback, after the first Genin test at the academy, Iruka spotted the blonde sat in the forest clearing with a scroll slung across his back. After landing next to him, he knew something was wrong. His right eye. It's crimson and the pupil changed to a slit. This is bad, very bad. It's just like the Kyuubi. Oh, you found me already. I only got to learn one technique, it's cool though. Stated the blonde young man. Iruka's jaw suddenly found it had an engagement to the ground. So the demon Brad actually learned one of the jutsu in that scroll, isn't that intriguing? A voice came from the trees. I recognize that voice, Mizuki. What's going on? Shouted Iruka. Naruto just laughed, a slightly insane laugh, a laugh bordering on maniacal. Iruka shivered. Mizuki dropped from the tree branch, two kunai went through the space he had just vacated, he saw Naruto's outstretched arm and saw the red ball of pure chakra in his hand and had time to think oh hell no, as pain racked his body, then the merciful blackness took him. Iruka wasn't sure what he had just seen, Naruto had thrown two kunai at Mizuki before blasting him with a vicious wind that came from a red chakra ball he had held in his hand. Mizuki blasted those several trees and was cut badly by the wind, which removed his right arm and his left leg at the knee and right foot. He was unconscious before he hit the boulder that snapped his neck, killing him before the shards of flying wood sliced what remained into pieces, his inside spreading in a puddle, leaving a mess that was near impossible to be recognized as once being human. Once Naruto let the ball of chakra fade, he turned to the dumbfounded Iruka. "Hey," said the boy. Iruka suddenly found his voice, "Nah Naruto. Does that mean I can be a genin now?" asked the blonde, seriously calm, one blue eye, one a silted red. Present day. People stared as he passed. Surprised by the change, probably. On was the orange jumpsuit, replacing it was black pants with an orange streak down the right-hand side, black t-shirt with an orange Konoha emblem on the front, underneath a black ankle-length jacket with an orange spiral on the back and orange flames at the bottom. The black sword slung across his back, the hilt above his right shoulder, and a black short sword across the small of his back hilt on the left. He had his forehead protector on, the blue material it originally had replaced by back, a black headband covered his right eye and went round his head like a bandage. It was his last mission that had convinced him that he had to do what he was about to. He needed time to find himself in the maelstrom that was his mind. Flashback. Mission to the wave, Demon Brothers attack. Izuna walked at the front, leading the way to the wave country. All Team 7 knew was they were to protect him en route and whilst he finished some job. Sakura walked at his left, kunai in her left hand, Sasuke to the right, kunai in his right hand. Naruto walked behind, in his new clothes, he had just bought them the day before. His teammates still looked at him with puzzled expressions. As he walked he rested his right hand on the black short sword at his hip. Man, I so need to get me a full-sized sword. Naruto moaned to himself, this short sword is cool, but it doesn't have much reach. A wise decision, kid, though keep this one, I like it. The demon responded. Kakashi studied Naruto as he walked behind the team. Something had happened to him between the academy and being assigned to his team, that much he knew. Naruto Uzumaki was a puzzle he needed to work out. What happened to him? The kid's changed so much from the troublemaker I was told about. I need to keep an eye on him, he may be unstable. Kakashi's train of thought was disrupted. A puddle when it hasn't rained for days, this should be interesting, what are you hiding, Tazuna? Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke and Izuna turned at the metallic noise behind them, in time to see Kakashi brutally ripped into pieces by two black-clad ninjas, connected by a metal chain that they had used to kill Kakashi. Izuna, Sasuke and Sakura just stared at the ninja, shock showing on their faces. Naruto however made just one statement, that wasn't nice, it looked like it hurt. Several jaws hit the floor, including the black-clad ninjas. Naruto smirked as he drew his sword and charged at the ninja on the right. Dodged his punch, good, he caught me off guard with that comb. The ninja then realized his mistake. Wait, punch. What about his short sword? The ninja noticed too late that his opponent was holding his sword backwards and he had dodged right into the blade's path. The words "you idiot" raced through the ninja's head, shortly followed by Naruto's blade. The other ninja jumped back rather quickly, only for the chain attaching him to his now decapitated teammate to pull him to the ground, face first. Oh hell no. Was his last thought as Naruto's sword pierced the back of his skull. Naruto calmly pulled his sword from the dead ninja's skull and proceeded to wipe the blade on the dead ninja's clothes before rooting through said ninja's pockets and checking their forehead protectors. He then turned his head at the sound of his teammates, violently returning their breakfast at the side of the road beside a shocked Izuna before yelling, "Hey, Kakashi-sensei, you can come out now." Kakashi appeared in the middle of the road in a swirl of leaves, his one eye showing considerable surprise. "I really didn't expect you to defeat both of them and know that they hadn't actually hit me, kid. How'd you know?" Kakashi asked. "This is some kid, another difference to the god of pranks that ran amok the village for so long." Naruto laughed before replying, "Simple, just before they got your chakra signature jumped into the trees. As to how I beat them, well, a normal genin would be scared seeing their sensei dying like that, so after my response, they were surprised and let their guard down, so it was easy to take them out." "You picked all that up in such a short amount of time, I'm impressed." Kakashi once again had an unreadable expression. "So, not the troublemaker I was told about by the Hokage, but something is very wrong." "Nah, I started planning once I saw the puddle." Kakashi's eyebrow once again rose. "So you noticed it too?" "How could I not? It was sending chakra off in waves as big as Konoha." Kakashi's jaw hit the floor, or would have had he not been wearing his mask. You sense the chakra from it? Yup, I can sense chakra really well. Naruto grinned. Sakura, Sasuke and Tazuna staggered to the middle of the road, looking rather pale. First time seeing someone die, huh? Asked Naruto. Yes, Sasuke replied. Sakura just mumbled something. Tazuna didn't do anything, he just stood there. You get used to it, don't worry about it, it's part of being a ninja after all. Naruto said. Damn, you better get over it, I'm not having two teammates who are afraid to kill. That would indeed be awkward. I take it that isn't your first kill, then Naruto noted Kakashi. 7th and 8th, replied Naruto. Kakashi's eyebrow rose, again, remarking, yet this is the first time you've left the village. Naruto's face fell. The streets of Konoha are pretty dangerous. Sakura and Sasuke looked surprised, Tazuna looked rather iller. Well, that's enough of that for now, let's go on for a mile or two before we make camp. I don't think Tazuna could go on for more than that. Yes, Sasuke replied. Sakura mumbled. Again, Tazuna was still pale. Present time. At night, I said more than I should have. Naruto walked down the twilight-lit streets of Konoha, the pale light reflecting off his blue eye. That was the night I named my short sword, the night I named my first weapon, Despair. Flashback. At Team 7's camp, night after the Demon Brothers' attack. Team 7 sat round a fire a short way from the road in a clearing in the forest. Well, first question, said Kakashi. Naruto, why did you check what the Demon Brothers had on them? I'm intrigued by your actions, so I want to know your reasoning. Naruto let out a small laugh. First, to see if they had anything to ID them, which you knew, so that was pointless. Second, to see if they had money on. What? Yelled Sakura. Well, you see, it's like this, I live on my own, don't have any family or any friends. The old man makes sure I get some money, but the Konoha Council stops him from giving me more than bare minimum to live on, sometimes not even that. So money is something I always need, but being a ninja now I can support myself, so it's more of a habit than anything else. And third, to see if they had anything else. They had some poison on them, but I don't like using it, so I left it, but that's all they had. Sasuke and Sakura gaped. Tazuna had already gone to bed as soon as it began to get dark. Logical answer, Kakashi remarked. Half in sync with what Hokage-sama said, only the Naruto he described wouldn't kill or check the pockets of his killed enemies. Alright then, second question, you seem to have taken a liking to keeping a black headband across your right eye, why? Asked Kakashi. Naruto sighed. I was expecting this one, I won't answer that, I'm not ready to, just yet. Fine, lastly, that interrupted Sakura, why did you let him off lightly with that one? That was no answer he gave Kakashi-sensei. It was Kakashi's turn to sigh. His reasons are his own, I was just curious. Sakura looked like she was sulking. Now last question, although it may lead to more questions, if you have never left Konoha before this, why did you already kill 6 people? Naruto's face fell at the question. I expected this one too, the village doesn't like me. Actually they hate me, often try to kill me. It's worst on my birthday though. Something I couldn't control, and they hate me for it. They try to kill you? And on your birthday as well? Asked Sakura, gaping in unbelief. Sasuke looked shocked as well, he kept silent. Sakura, do you know when Naruto's birthday is? Asked Kakashi. Sakura shook her head. October 10th, I was born the day the Kyuubi attacked, stated Naruto. How much are going to tell them, kid? The Kyuubi growled. Only what they need to know. Sakura just stared. Sasuke had recomposed his face to indifference, who knew for Kakashi. What does that have to do with anything? Asked a puzzled Sakura. No one knows who my parents are, not even me. I was found after the Kyuubi's attack, the old man said my name was Naruto Uzumaki, and that's all anyone knows about me. I came from nowhere after the Kyuubi died, so people think that I am the Kyuubi, and it doesn't help that I can heal from fatal wounds in seconds. Sometimes, I'm not sure myself. Naruto fell silent as Sasuke and Sakura thought it over. Too much, kid, way too much. Naruto stayed silent, his one blue eye looking down at the ground, despair welling up in him. Despair, again. That's all I seem to be able to feel lately. The depths of despair. A fitting name for a sword that lacks one, perhaps. Naruto drew his sword, holding it, the reflection of the flames dancing off the blade, flames that reflected in his blue eye. He drew kunai and began to name his sword, etching his chosen name into the blade. Sasuke and Sakura didn't notice, still lost in thought. Kakashi looked on with interest. Naruto finished and sheathed his kunai, looking at the blade of his short sword and what he had inscribed, the name of his weapon of choice. Mind if I have a look? Naruto was broken out of his thoughts at the question from Kakashi. Sakura and Sasuke looked up as well, surprise on their faces at seeing Naruto's sword unsheathed. Looking at the fire, he handed his black short sword to Kakashi. Kakashi's eye widened in shock before regaining composure. HMPH, a sad name for a sword, what made you pick this for a name? Asked Kakashi. It's all I seem to feel nowadays. Sadness laced his voice. Kakashi passed the sword to Sasuke, who looked at the name, eyes widening in shock before he regained control of himself as he passed the blade to Sakura. She stared at the inscribing with shock, then at Naruto with pity. Naruto looked at Sakura, the dancing fire turning his blue eye crimson as a red glowed underneath his black headband. Never look at me like that again. All it could be described as, and in all fairness was, demonic. Sakura dropped the sword, the blade sinking into the ground. She stood on shaky legs and ran to her tent, tears falling from her eyes. The glow in Naruto's right eye died, and his blue eye showed sadness and regret. I probably shouldn't have done that, I'll apologize tomorrow. And the blade of despair reflected the dying flames as they danced their final dance. Present time. That night was the start of bringing us all closer as a team. Yeah, that night was the start of this journey. Naruto walked down the darkened streets of Konoha, holding the blade of despair, the moonlight reflecting off the inscription on the blade. That night was one to remember. Flashback, the day the demon attacked. The atmosphere as Team 7 broke camp was unpleasant. Kakashi had asked, or interrogated, depends on who you ask, Tazuna about why they had ninjas after them. Naruto was troubled. How am I going to apologize to her? Tell her the truth, it would be a brilliant laugh. Oh yeah, real smooth. Sorry, my demonic part decided it hated you, so I shouted at you. So sorry about that, Naruto thought sarcastically. Demonic laughter answered him. What can I say? I hate pink. Naruto made up his mind. He walked over to where Sakura was packing her tent. She flinched as he stopped next to her and crouched. Putting his hand on her shoulder, she tensed as he said sorry. Sakura turned to him in surprise as he continued, I really shouldn't have said that, but I'm sick of all the looks I get. Apathy, anger, but especially pity. I just don't want you guys to start looking at me like that too. Oh, go on and shout at her, it was funny. Naruto turned and walked away. He missed seeing the smile she gave. He smelt the change in her mood and laughed. That's better, I prefer that smile to pity any day. He laughed at her shocked reaction as he turned around. I can smell people's emotions, he explained, giving her a knowing smile. If you want, I can tell Sasuke how you feel when we get there, but I don't think he's noticed yet. He's pretty dense when it comes to noticing girls. He's not going to revive the Uchiha like that. Sakura just gaped before nodding with a blush. Satisfied, Naruto turned again and walked over to Kakashi. My problem's cleared up, so I'm ready to go. Kakashi just nodded. Sakura and Sasuke walked over once they finished getting ready. Tazuna stood cowering next to Kakashi. Alright, let's go, same formation as yesterday. He pulled his little book from his pouch and continued, led the way Tazuna. And he began to read as they walked. Hey, why you reading that? Didn't this mission just get a whole lot more dangerous? Asked Naruto. Because you're so good at detecting enemies, think of it as training. Naruto nodded and continued to scan the surrounding area. Hahaha, I can't believe he bought it, thought Kakashi. Things continued quite calmly, mostly. There was the incident where Kakashi giggled whilst reading his book and the edgy Naruto nearly took his head off with his sword. Sakura and Sasuke found it funny, but Tazuna didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A perverted one-eyed super ninja, a dark-brooding kid hell-bent on revenge, a girl who gets weak at the knees looking at the silent one, and a crazy black-cloaked one who's also missing an eye that's so jumpy he can slice your head off before he knows it's you. Why me? Once Kakashi made sure that his book was in a non-cut state, he checked his head was also in one piece. After that he laughed, it had been the only non-dull moment that day. The next day was better, or perhaps worse, depending on how you look at half a glass of water. They were walking along when Naruto felt a pulse of chakra from a nearby tree. Diving forward he yelled for everyone to get down, knocking Tazuna to the floor a split second before he became quite dead. That fate was avoided though. Looking up they saw a man stood on the hilt of a very large sword, a very sharp sword. The man was all muscle, tall, and wearing a flak vest and ninja clothes with bandages around the bottom half of his face. On his head was a hidden Mist Village forehead protector tilted at the side, with a slash through the Mist Village's symbol. Guard the mark. I'll take this guy. Kakashi ordered, stepping forward as Naruto moved in front of Tazuna, Sakura to his left, Sasuke to his right. Naruto drew his sword and took his stance, right foot forward, the right side of his body slightly forward, hands on the black hilt, sword pointing forwards at a 45-degree angle, and he waited, eyes closed, reaching out with senses. Zabuza Mamachi, the demon of the hidden mist, stated Kakashi, this is going to be tough. Laughter rang through the clearing. The great copycat ninja, had a Kakashi, it is an honor. Kakashi just shifted his forehead protector to reveal his Sharingan. I won't hold back, not against you. Sasuke's jaw dropped. How the hell did he get the Sharingan? Huh, Sharingan? What the hell is that? Naruto asked as he opened his eye. You need to learn more about bloodlines, kid. Talk and study later, fight now. The Sharingan is the Uchiha bloodline ability. Sasuke explained. It can copy any taijutsu, ninjutsu or genjutsu as well as read them. Handy, so where's yours? Asked a very curious Naruto. The mumble answered his question. Keep your secrets, I've kept my own. Right now, let's watch the fight. Nicely done, kid, he is so not going to like you after this. I hate you. I know, glorious isn't it? Changed my mind, now I despise you. Demonic laughter rang through his head as mist rolled into the surrounding area from the river. Naruto could barely see Kakashi with his eyes. If his vision was that bad, then Kakashi was going to have a hard time. Kakashi knew he was in trouble. Zabuza, former Anbu, a master in silent killing. With this mist I can barely see a foot away, I can't see my team, and the mist makes using my Sharingan impossible. Been a while since I've been in a situation like this. Then he heard the clash of metal behind him and spun around. Oh, not good, as the wind was knocked out of him as something hit him in the stomach. Kakashi flew backwards into a tree, the object that hit him stopping a foot or so in front of him, and that was how Kakashi saw the orange spiral on the back of a long black jacket. Naruto had been straining every one of his senses to feel Zabuza's movements. In this mist he had to keep alert, even if he could feel Zabuza's chakra when he moved, that alone wouldn't beat him. Oh hell no. As Naruto felt the chakra behind him, his speed, it's inhuman. Naruto spun round, bringing his sword around the back of his head and slashed down as he finished his 180 turn, only to hit solid metal. He saw Zabuza, his back to Tazuna, casually holding his sword horizontal in front of him, with just his right hand, quite lazily. That all you got, kid? Pathetic. Zabuza raised his right arm, and Naruto put all his strength into forcing Zabuza's sword down, but it didn't work. His strength, I can't do anything, my training wasn't enough. Zabuza flicked his sword, knocking Naruto off balance before pivoting on the ball of his foot and kicking Naruto in the chest, sending him flying. Sakura was frozen in fear, rooted in her place staring at the spot where Naruto had disappeared into the mist. Naruto was blown away. Sakura dropped to her knees from the killing intent she felt coming from behind her. She saw Sasuke drop to his knees as well. Tazuna had completely passed out, sprawled out across the ground. Bunch of genin brats, that all I get to. Zabuza felt a fist hit his stomach and a clang as another blade locked with his, halting his movements. Kakashi stood in front of Zabuza, a kunai in his left hand locked against Zabuza's sword, his right fist impacting Zabuza's stomach. I'm your opponent, Zabuza. Sakura, Sasuke, get back, head straight back, and you should find Naruto, take Tazuna with you. They did as he said. So, the stage is set. Zabuza noted. After I beat you, I'll take out the brat with the sword and kill the old man, what do you say to that? HPH, you have to beat me first. But even so, Naruto won't be taken down as easily as you think. He has a fair few tricks up his sleeve. Then let's begin. Laughed Zabuza as he launched himself backwards and disengaged his sword from Kakashi's kunai. The real fight begins now. As he melted into the mist. Not good, the mist obscures vision and dampens the hearing, I have to rely on my other senses I guess. Kakashi closed his right eye and stood in a loose guard stance, waiting for the chance to strike. He felt it, Zabuza wanted to finish this in one final blow. Kakashi would have to disappoint him as whirled about, catching the two-handed overhead slash on his kunai, driven to his knees from the sheer force of the blow. It was then Zabuza realized his mistake, his eyes widening as Kakashi's right arm shot out, the knife-like blow struck Zabuza in the throat, damaging his windpipe. He blocked my blow with one hand and went to his knees, just so he could strike with his other hand. Clever, not good enough. Zabuza turned into water and hit the floor. Damn, a water clone. What's his game? Kakashi launched into the air and he felt the blow pass his feet. He twisted in mid-air and landed behind Zabuza. Kakashi thrust his kunai forward and felt the resistance as it entered the real Zabuza's back, who twisted to the side, avoiding any serious damage before he span around and started a relentless assault on Kakashi. Zabuza gained the pace of the fight. Kakashi was reeling from the speed and ferocity of the blows, but he still had one card left to play at this point. He dropped his guard and let Zabuza's sword pass through his neck. To Zabuza's surprise, Kakashi turned to water. You copy that fast. Kakashi dived at Zabuza with everything he had, kunai in each hand and Sharingan spinning. He knew he had to make it count. He drove Zabuza back and scored several hits to his arms and chest. Zabuza knew it was over as he felt his back break against a tree, sword locked with Kakashi's two kunai. But this wasn't the cause of his death, it was the sharp pain in the side of his head that killed him, and he would never know who killed him. He was dead the moment the titanium blade pierced his temple. Naruto just stood there, hand gripping despair, the blade had passed right through Zabuza's head. Kakashi's eye widened. I didn't even sense you that time. Of course you didn't. You were focused on fighting Zabuza. Normally, you probably would have seen me coming. Naruto withdrew the blade and wiped it on Zabuza's clothes before his body dropped to the ground. He sheathed his sword and looked around with a puzzled look in his eye. Why hasn't the mist dissipated? Kakashi looked around still on guard because Zabuza didn't create the mist. Someone else did. As Kakashi finished this sentence a figure, possibly male, approached through the mist with a hunter nin mask in hand. Seeing Zabuza's fresh corpse, he screamed and charged. Kakashi tried to intercept the kid before realizing the extent of how much trouble he was in. I took too many hits from Zabuza, I can't move. Kakashi sank to his knees and watched in fascination as Naruto dealt with him. Naruto turned to the young boy charging at him and did the last thing Kakashi or the boy expected. Removing the cloth covering his right eye, he revealed the demonic eye underneath. Kakashi gasped as the boy immediately began bleeding from his eyes, stumbled, and hit the floor, unconscious. "Naruto, what the hell was that?" asked a stunned Kakashi before he realized that Naruto was breathing heavily. "Must take a lot out of him, no wonder he hides it. It's a genjutsu I can cast with the Kyuubi's power, causes the person to relive any part of their life, I can influence what kind of memory. He's seeing a good part of his life, since we want to question him later. First time I've used this, and this eye has a couple of other tricks as well, but I need to rest after using this one. Some I can use all day long, some I can do through the headband, this one needs direct eye contact and puts me out for a couple of hours, but he'll be trapped in the genjutsu for a day or so." And with his explanation finished, he passed out hitting the floor with a thud, exhausted. Once Kakashi had regained enough strength, he moved over to Naruto and covered his eye and his own, before calling for Sakura and Sasuke to bring Tazuna and help. The three came over, Tazuna staggering slightly. "It's alright, kid's just passed out, but it was a vicious fight, so he's in no condition to move." Sasuke, carry Naruto. "Sakura, that kid over there, he was working with Zabuza, so I want to question him." "Tazuna, do you mind helping me out? I'm not so good myself, just not as bad as them too." Sasuke just nodded and slung Naruto across his back. Sakura did the same with the boy when she noticed something about him. "Kakashi-sensei, why does he have blood coming from his eyes?" "No idea, let's leave questions till we get to Tazuna's house." Kakashi sealed Zabuza's sword and the boy's mask into a scroll, and Tazuna helped him up. The group managed to reach Wave later that night, just as Naruto returned to the land of the moving. Kakashi was walking without help by the time they reached Tazuna's house, though Naruto still needed Sasuke's shoulder to lean on. Tazuna welcomed them in and introduced Team 7 to his daughter Tsunami. She greeted them kindly and showed them to their rooms, asking to speak to them more in the morning. As they moved the boy into a bed, Kakashi asked Naruto if the boy would wake up in the night. "Sakura and Sasuke already in different rooms and asleep," Naruto replied. "He might, but I really don't think so. I put enough demon chakra into it to keep you out all night, sensei, so I doubt that he's strong enough to break it." Slightly disturbed with what Naruto just suggested, Kakashi tucked the boy in, and with that, they went to bed. Team 7 awoke to find a full breakfast ready for them, which was extremely appreciated. Fully refreshed, Kakashi had gone to sort out the kid as he put it and asked Naruto to follow once he'd finished his breakfast. Naruto quickly finished his meal and had walked up the stairs when Kakashi burst out of the room, sinking to the bottom of the wall, his nose bleeding. Curiously, Naruto peeked in the room and suffered the same fate, albeit with a smile on his face. After hearing the first bang, Sasuke started to climb the stairs after Naruto and rushed ahead at the second sound. At the top he found Naruto and Kakashi on the floor with heavy nosebleeds. He briefly wondered how Kakashi could have a nosebleed through a mask, but he did nonetheless. This then led him to look in the room and unwittingly became the third victim and fainted between his master and teammate with a matching nosebleed and grin. Hearing a second body hit the floor, Sakura sighed and left her meal. When she heard Sasuke hit the floor, however, she was all urgency. After discovering her sensei and two teammates sprawled on the floor with nosebleeds, she looked inside the room and, well, she developed a twitch just above her right eye and then she balled her fists. "What the hell do you think you're doing, you bunch of perverts?" Seeing no immediate response, she did the only thing that seemed right. Minutes later, Kakashi, Sasuke and Naruto were sat on the kitchen floor, tied up back to back, looking quite badly decked, cowering before the goddess of rage before them, that was Sakura. "What did you think you were doing?" she yelled at her team. "How was I supposed to know he was a she?" Kakashi said rather sheepishly. Sakura was saved from replying by Naruto. "On the bright side, at least now we know that Sasuke isn't gay." Silence filled the room. "Why the hell would you think I was gay?" screamed one mortified Ichiha. "Well, you keep going on and on about reviving your clan, but I don't see you putting the moves on anyone. Hell, I half expected you and Sakura to get down to business on the way here, I mean come on. She'd be more than up for it. Guess you just lack the balls." 2.5 pairs of eyes turned to him, 2 of the pairs promising death, a slow painful death, 1 pair even contemplating castration. "Oh, I loved that. Do it again, do it again." The Kyuubi's words made Naruto realize what kind of mess he was in, and fortunately for him, that was when he decided to release the clone jutsu. When the hell did he create a shadow clone? Screamed Sakura and Sasuke in unison. Kakashi, however, realized that the rope was now loosened by the removal of one body and wisely made his escape. Sakura, realizing that she'd just lost, sighed and sat amongst the rope against Sasuke's back. After they'd calmed down, they looked at each other and blushed before taking a walk outside together. Kakashi then came out from underneath the floorboards. May part demon and two teens who are very hormonal whimy. An hour later found Naruto and Kakashi interrogating a very much female person on her connection with the deceased Zabuza, though they got nothing. Meanwhile Sasuke and Sakura could be found sitting at the end of the pier near Tazuna's house, doing more pleasurable activities. Eventually Kakashi and Naruto finished the interrogation and proceed to search for the said persons. Naruto found them in the middle of said pleasurable activities, who didn't even sense him come near. "Whoa, kissing already?" said Naruto as he approached the couple, who must have jumped a clear foot in sheer shock. Kakashi appeared behind them with a clear smirk beneath his mask. "You owe me 300 yen, Naruto. Come on, cough up." "Damn it." Naruto replied, digging for his wallet. "I didn't think he'd have enough balls to get this far." He stopped, feeling the killing intent coming from the angry pair, and both Naruto and Kakashi began to sweat. "Oh," said a rather nervous Kakashi. "This is good stuff, kid. I think I am going to like being around you a lot, pervert, and loving it." Sakura and Sasuke just stood and faced Naruto and Kakashi. They didn't say a word, but the message was clear. "Leave this place. Do it fast, and you may live." Naruto and Kakashi didn't have to read the situation twice. Running back to the house, Kakashi became serious, and once he was sure that the new couple weren't actively seeking for their lives, he signaled for Naruto to stop and catch his breath. Between gulps of air, Kakashi spoke, "Naruto, we need to talk about something important." Naruto just sighed, "I've been waiting for it. That comes afterwards. I'm not too worried about that. I just want to know, did you see Sasuke?" "I saw two things. 1. Yes, I did indeed see Sasuke's eyes, and 2. I think before we get back we may have other news, but that is a remote possibility, especially if you have a word with them about it." "What other news? And what would I need to talk to them about?" "Well, if we aren't careful, then before we get back we could have news about some little pink-haired dark-brooding emos running about in the near future, I can just tell." Kakashi paled, "You're right, I'll go talk to them." "You might not live if you talk to them now, don't worry just yet. None of you three managed to get the bells, Naruto." "I only ran because it was polite." Kakashi's voice showed his nervousness, that and it was my natural reflex. Naruto remembered who was the stronger of the two at this point and stepped back in line. "Anyway, I believe you wanted to talk to me about what I used on that guy girl, don't you? And about a few other things, right?" "Yeah." Kakashi visibly relaxed. "First off, what's with the eye?" "That story starts on my 8th birthday, though I guess it's really the only story." "You mean the attack by the Anbu?" Naruto was surprised and he showed it. "You know about that then?" "Well, after I recovered from the attack, I was told a man had killed the Anbu and had taken me to the old man, I never found out whom." "Yeah, I know that too, though I know who brought you back." "Really?" "I always wanted to thank the guy, but no one would tell me who he was because he asked it to be kept a secret. We'll talk to the Hokage when we get back, so, what's the rest of this story?" "Well, I've never told anyone this, though I think the old man has some idea about it." "Please don't interrupt me, I'm kind of nervous about it." Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Whilst I was out after the attack, I came face to face with Kyuubi, then I passed out in my own head. When I woke up after that attack, I heard a voice in my head telling me it could heal me in an hour instead of days. I started listening to the voice after that and I worked out quite quickly that it was Kyuubi. It taught me things and I started to train. I got a lot stronger, faster than anyone else, but I kept holding back because I didn't want attention drawn to it. I really didn't want anyone to figure anything out. It was after that when I first killed. I was sick for days, but I got over it and now it doesn't bother me." Naruto paused for a while. "Although Kyuubi didn't just teach me how to be strong, I learned some new moves from it, though they kind of tire me out if I use them too many times in a row. The eye kind of happened on the night I became a genin, you know, the whole mess with Mizuki. I used one of the moves that night and killed him. He tricked me to get the forbidden scroll. I ended up learning the shadow clone move before I killed him, but my right eye ended up like the Kyuubi's eye because of it. Since then I've learned a load of genjutsu I can do with it. Some require me to take the headband off, others don't, that's all there is to it really." Kakashi sat there, dumbfounded. "That is one hell of a story." "Yup, the insanity that is my life. It's so fun." "Damn furball, what was that?" "Oh, sorry, I was talking to Kyuubi." Kakashi just sat there, wow. Several hours had passed, and Kakashi, Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke were questioning Zabuza's accomplice. Who they had come to learn was named Haku, and was also not a guy. After much talking they had convinced Haku to tell her story. Naruto listened and watched her with much interest. "Why are you staring at me like that?" asked Haku, still visibly shaken from the death of Zabuza. "Your past is just like mine." This surprised Haku. "Excuse me? You were hated wherever you go because of something you can't control," answered Naruto. Zabuza was the only person I had in my life, he was the only one who treat me like a human being, I don't, she sighed, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Naruto turned to Kakashi and grinned, oh great was all Kakashi could say. What? What's wrong? Asked a slightly worried Sasuke. I was warned about that grin by Hokage-sama, replied Kakashi. What about it? Asked Sakura. It means trouble. Usually in the form of a cunning plan. Naruto laughed, I have two plans this time, not just one. The first is up to Haku. Haku looked at him quizzically as Naruto continued. How would you like to come with us to Konoha and become a full official ninja? Kakashi, Sasuke and Sakura fell to the floor. Haku looked delighted, really? You can do that? Yup, if what you said is true, then nowhere has any record of you existing. I'm sure we could persuade the old man to let it happen. Naruto found himself joining his teammates on the floor as Haku threw herself at him. He could just about make out her whispered thank you as Kakashi stared, once again dumbfounded by the blonde genin. I get told he's a prankster, secretly known as the Sannin of pranks by the Anbu, who have had to repeatedly chase him, then when I meet him, he's as depressing as as depressing as is humanly possible, but now, he's a bit of both. Is he bipolar or something? So you found a perfectly exploitable loophole. I'm impressed. What is your second little surprise? Asked a very curious Kakashi. Tonight, the five of us are going to get properly drunk at a pub to celebrate. Kid, I've just realized that I like you very much. Very very much. I know. And just how do you plan on pulling that off? Asked a seemingly uninterested Sakura, secretly thinking this is gonna be awesome. Well, completely unaware of how much Sasuke's eyes were shining in anticipation. Oh, that's the beauty of it, it's all legal. There happens to be a little known law that upon becoming a ninja you are officially recognized as an adult. Wait, so that means Sasuke was cut off by, oh yeah. We are going drinking. Shouted Sakura. You know, I could get to like them too. At dinner later that night, Izuna had introduced Team 7 and Haku to his grandson Inari, who looked at them and stayed silent, glaring at the five. Dinner was a silent affair, Inari kept glaring at them, Naruto broke the silence, hey Inari, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Why do you fight Gato? You can't win against him. He got up and ran upstairs. What was that about? Asked Sakura. Izuna then proceeded to tell the story of the hero of Wave. Naruto sighed. Well, I guess there's only one thing to do, I'll see what I can do about Inari. With that Naruto left the room. Haku's gaze followed him, why is he so kind? Haku asked. Kakashi answered he's had one tough life. People see him as something that in reality he constantly fights against. He has great understanding when it comes to pain and he saw that same pain in you as well as Inari. Haku looked at the door where Naruto had left, a thoughtful expression on her face. Naruto slipped silently into Inari's room, Inari himself sat on his desk, crying, as he held the photo of the hero of the wave. You know, crying never gets you anywhere. It only makes you more depressed. Naruto considered his words for a moment, although sometimes that can be a good thing. Inari turned around, hurriedly wiping his tears. And what do you know about it? All too much, your granddad told us about your dad, the hero of the wave. There are no such things as heroes. Sometimes, the greatest heroes die with their goals unfulfilled. Do you know why that makes them the best heroes? Inari looked at Naruto curiously, the reason that they are among the greatest heroes is that they were willing to die for what they thought was right. Your dad was one of those heroes, I won't let his sacrifice be in vain. Inari had much to think about that night, which he did while Team 7 and Haku left to go to the pub. No one stopped the five ninja as they entered the pub. Haku was wearing a spare set of Naruto's pants and shirt, an orange stripe down the right leg and an orange Konoha emblem on the front, her hunter nin mask hanging from her belt. The bartender only asked what they wanted. Several minutes later the five were sat, with several bottles of sake, Kakashi being the only one having drunk sake before, they all took their first drink, Sakura and Sasuke started coughing slightly, Naruto simply stated I like it. Haku nodded in agreement as she took another drink, Kakashi watched, somehow he drank the sake without taking his mask off. Naruto looked at him with surprise. How do you that? Kakashi did his famous eye smile and answered by drinking more sake through his mask. I have no understanding of how it is possible for you do that. Maybe I'll understand it more when I'm drunk. And with that Sasuke downed more sake. You know I developed it when I was drunk myself. Kakashi stated. The rest just stared at him. The following morning was interesting indeed. Kakashi was perfectly fine, so was Naruto, the other three had killer hangovers and appeared to be allergic to light, Kakashi nearly had a heart attack though. Sasuke and Sakura were in the same bed, both fully clothed though. That was a relief, he gave them a much needed talking to, both were red-faced afterwards, so was Kakashi. Right then, today we will be training, Tazuna doesn't start building again until tomorrow, so we are going training, Haku will joining us as well. Hi, the four replied. Kakashi led the four into the nearby forest, the three hung over genin grumbling. Sakura gave Naruto an evil glare, how come you're fine? Just lucky I guess. Replied a cheerful Naruto. An idiot never gets sick, noted Sasuke, much to the girl's amusement. For his first time drinking's sake, it's an unbelievable recovery considering how much he drank. Either he healed off the alcohol or, if that's even possible, the Kyuubi drank it. Mused Kakashi. Today we will be climbing trees, using just your feet. 3 of the 4 looked worried. Naruto didn't. That's easy. As he pulled off a chakra-enhanced jump to the top of a very tall tree. Kakashi was stunned. Not what I meant, Naruto, but how on earth did you do that? Naruto dropped from the tree. Easy, I just put my chakra into my legs and jumped. I know that, but even I can't jump that high. What I meant was this. Kakashi proceeded to walk up the tree. Cool, yelled Sakura. This is what you will be doing today. You need to focus chakra into your feet and maintain it. Too much and you will be blasted off, too little and you will fall. The 4 took a running start. Haku and Sakura managed to do it first time, but Sasuke just slid down and Naruto blasted himself through 5 trees on his first time. He slid down the tree and fell on his second attempt and the next 27 times as well. Sasuke improved but couldn't climb that high. Naruto had several bumps and scrapes. He was laying on the ground, wondering where he was going wrong. He decided to ask Kyuubi. Hey, for a ball, give me a pointer or something. Kyuubi sighed. Fine. Before trying again, put one foot against a tree and try to lift your other foot off the ground. Once you can do it without blasting off it or sliding, use that level of chakra to do it. Thanks, why didn't you teach me this? Since you're able to jump it with your chakra, I never saw the point in teaching you how to climb trees. Good thing I didn't, or I wouldn't get to watch you fall on your ass so much right now. I hate you. I bask in your hate and love it. Naruto was broken out of his conversation when Sasuke kicked him in the ribs. You in there? He asked. I was thinking. Skiing. Naruto and Sasuke proceeded to try again. Haku stayed close to Naruto, giving help where she could. Sakura did the same with Sasuke. Kakashi stood a little ways off. They are going to be a fine team, even better if we manage to persuade Hokage-sama to let Haku join. Eventually, Naruto and Sasuke succeeded. The next day found the 5 of them at the bridge construction site. Kakashi had told them he expected Geto and his mercenaries to attack halfway through the week when they had evaluated the ninjas and the not ninja. On the fated day of the expected attack, it was agreed that Naruto would stay back to guard Tsunami and Inari. The others proceeded to the bridge. Azuna's house. He stood a short way from the house under the cover of some trees. Naruto reached out with his senses, confident that no one would be able to get past him. A few hours after the others left, 2 sword-wielding thugs approached the house. Inari came running out of the house with a wooden stick and ran at the thugs, screaming his battle cry from the bottom of his lungs. The 2 thugs saw this and laughed, drawing their swords. They moved for Inari, but Naruto dived into the one on the right, knocking both thugs to the ground. He quickly dispatched the one he tackled with a stab to the heart and turned to face the other holding his sword in a guard position. The remaining thug screamed incoherently and raised his sword. Naruto stepped forward and with a slash, relieved the guy of his arm before stabbing him in heart to match his companion. Hey Inari, you okay? Naruto asked the stunned boy. Inari just nodded. Naruto looked at the swords. One was red with a carving of a lion on the scabbard and the word lion inscribed on the sword. This he threw to Inari. Keep it. Inari looked at the sword, stunned, and stammered his thanks. Naruto turned to the other sword and he saw that it was black, bearing a carving of a fox. The word Kitsune was inscribed on the blade. Naruto smirked and swung that blade over his shoulder, thinking to the other Kitsune ironic. Indeed. Inari, I've got to head to the bridge now, so look after your mom, alright? And with that Naruto sped off towards the main battle. He arrived at the bridge just in time, as Geto had indeed attacked. Tazuna and the workers stood behind the ninjas. Geto stood behind his mercenaries who were charging towards the ninjas. Naruto ran to his allies and past them, drawing his new black blade, Kitsune. Later, when he had a swordsmith look at the blade, he would come to learn that it was made from a rare carbon-based alloy called vermicular iron. In addition to the black tint, the blade was strong, light, and conducted chakra really well, an attribute his other blade, Despair, did not have. However, he did not know this, and the only thought going through his mind as he ran was the one he voiced. Bring it on. Haku followed him, carrying Zabuza's sword. The 2 of them quickly creating a vortex of death. Haku clumsily swung the huge blade. Naruto swiftly cut through flesh, both of them getting more and more accustomed to their new blades. Sakura and Kakashi charged forwards, each with a kunai, and attacked the foes that got past Naruto and Haku. Sasuke, however, charged straight through melee, kunai in each hand. He charged towards Geto, Sharingan spinning as he leaped towards him. Geto felt the pain as Sasuke suddenly jumped from his chest as the blood began spraying from his lungs and breathing became impossible. As the gangster sank to the floor, his world turning black, the last thing he heard was the words of the boy who killed him, that is for the people of the wave. Team 7 were leaving through the new bridge. On its side was carved the name of the 5 who fought to protect it, starting with Geto's killer and ending with their sensei. Tazuna wanted the bridge to be named after Sasuke, but the Uchiha refused. However, Naruto was considering the way Sasuke fought compared to his own canine-like approach and suggested an alternative name, one that everyone agreed upon. And that was the story of the bridge connecting the wave to the leaf, the Falcon Bridge. It was an uneventful few days on the return journey and soon the team returned and delivered their report to the Hokage. Impressed with their actions, the Hokage agreed to make Haku a genin and part of Team 7. Overcome with joy, Haku ran screaming around the room for a full 5 minutes. The other genin calmed her down and they left together for ramen to celebrate. However, Kakashi stayed behind to deliver his report. Before he could begin, the old man chuckled and then spoke to Kakashi, that boy he has dealt with so much pain all his life. He has every right to be full of anger and hate, like that Uchiha boy, yet every time he meets someone with the same pain he bears, less pain even, he still finds a way to help them through their pain and becomes fast friends with them. Kakashi was surprised by the old Hokage's words, sir. Naruto Namika Uzumaki. Truly, he is one remarkable kid. Present time, Naruto arrived outside the gates of Konoha. Turning around, he found himself staring back at the twilight-lit village that was his home. He heard a man approach from outside the village. He was robed in black and had no defining features other than the scroll slung across his back. You ready to go, kid? We've got a job to do. Naruto turned and nodded, a downcast look on his face. Yeah, just wish I'd said goodbye to a few friends. You'll only be gone 6 weeks, don't worry about it. Anyway, this is a top secret mission. I know, but the team really grew close during our last mission, then 2 days later I leave without a word, just a letter. It just doesn't seem right that, and the fact that Haku's still upset about Zabuza's death. She acts happy, but I can tell it's just a front. I promised her I'd help her and I never break a promise, that the way I do things. Hey, sometimes our jobs as a ninja require us to do stuff like this, don't dwell on it. You can't change it, you just have to walk on. Seeing Naruto still didn't look convinced, he added, come on, I want to be away by the morning. The man pulled a bottle from under his robe, adding, I hear you like sake. I like this guy. The following morning, Team 7 meeting point. Where is he? Roared a frustrated Sakura, a flinching Sasuke holding her hand. Haku stood a little way off looking down the river, thinking about how her life had changed in the past few days. She had changed her clothes since Team 7 had returned. She now wore brown ninja pants with a kunai holster on her right leg. She wore a sky blue jacket with a light gray section across her middle and brown fingerless gloves. She had also started to carry Zabuza's sword across her back. Hokage Tower. Alright Kakashi, I'll tell you the full situation. The old Hokage said with a sigh. A very frustrated Kakashi can be very persuasive. I sent Naruto on this mission because I think he is the only one who can do it. Yuha? Only Naruto? What kind of mission is this? I'll explain. After you had delivered your reports from your last mission, Naruto came back to talk to me. He said the Kyuubi felt something wrong. What does that have to do with it? Kyuubi felt that it was a possibility I could die in the near future. Alright, but wait, what? I can trust the Kyuubi on this because Naruto would be affected through my death. Although Kyuubi is a demon, he had a need to keep his host alive and well, both physically and mentally. How's that work? I can understand why Kyuubi needs to preserve Naruto physically, but why mentally? The Kyuubi's world is based on Naruto's state of mind. Originally, it was a dark cage, but now Kyuubi's free to roam within Naruto's Amagi nation. Kakashi groaned at the old man's pun. The Hokage continued, my death would affect that, since I'm one of the few who treat Naruto with any sort of respect, so I sent them on a mission to retrieve Tsunade of the Sannin. Jiraiya of the Sannin is with him. Jiraiya? Isn't he enough on his own? Jiraiya isn't suited to the task. I need to name my successor, and I know Naruto's dream is to become Hokage, but he is far from ready. They'll be back in 6 weeks in time for the Chunin exams, and I apologize for taking him away from his team during this critical period, but spending time with his godfather is a good thing as well. Wait, that means Kakashi had a look of shock in his eye. Naruto doesn't know, and I plan to tell him after the Chunin exams, so don't tell him. Only 4 people, including us too, know. As for the other 2, he's traveling with one and going to find the other. It was his father's wish that he only be told when he could take care of the responsibilities that come with his name, the others also know not to tell. Kakashi frowned, does the Kyuubi know? And what about the genealogy records in the archive? Naruto must have tried to learn about his parents. I assure you, it's fine. More importantly, I believe you need to meet with your team, tell them that he has been sent on a 6-week top secret mission. They won't like it. Oh? And why is that? That's the interesting part. 1. It seems the reason that Sasuke was so silent on the fangirl situation wasn't that he wasn't interested, but because he didn't know whether he liked Sakura or Ino. Ho ho, really? Naruto helped him decide, and above that, Sasuke opened up about his brother and has actually started being sociable with the team. The Hokage really looked surprised this time, and Kakashi continued to voice his concerns. Haku will take it worst of all. After the death of Zabuza, she didn't know what to do. Naruto began to help her through that, and although she isn't over it yet, I think that she's begun to replace Zabuza with Naruto. It could get complicated later on. The Hokage leaned back in his chair with a satisfied smile on his face. That just reaffirms my belief that Naruto is the one for the job. He has a special way with people, and once they get to know him, he becomes a friend that would die for them without a second thought. He shows a great understanding of the pain others feel and how to help them round it. Friendliness and empathy, both qualities are needed for this mission. Just like him, eh? Well, guess I've got to go tell my team the news. Kakashi made a few jutsu seals and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Minutes later, a loud yell from 3 voices was heard from across the village, each exclaiming what? Followed by a single voice not so loud the old Hokage just chuckled and pulled a little orange book from his drawer. He opened it up, thinking to himself this is going to be interesting. But Naruto, morning after, several miles away from Konoha. Naruto lay on the ground, his one blue eye staring lazily at the canopy of the trees. It was mid-morning, and they had traveled all night, only stopping once the sun had reached dawn's horizon. Naruto couldn't help but think as the black-cloaked man, who had introduced himself as Jiraiya of the Sannin, slept not too far off. He had said they would start their training that afternoon, and they would start off again tomorrow. I wonder how Haku's doing. I told the old man she could stay at my place for a while. I hope she's alright. She never did fully recover from Zabuza's death. I hope she doesn't find the stash. I doubt that she'll search the place in that much detail. It's well hidden, so don't worry. I'm not so sure. Swiftly changing the subject, Naruto thought, I wonder how Sasuke and Sakura are doing. I can guess. Kyuubi proceeded to show Naruto various imaginative detailed images of his guesses. Naruto yelled. The black-cloaked man just rolled over and Naruto lay back down. Stupid perverted fox. He mumbled. I do love your reactions, they make me feel all warm and fuzzy. I hate you. Asking, Naruto sat up and put his arms around his knees. I hope everyone isn't too mad at me. In Konoha, in Naruto's apartment, Kakashi led the way in, Haku following. Sasuke and Sakura stayed outside, catching up. Alright Haku, since you've been staying at Sakura's house for the past 2 days, Naruto said, you can stay here until you can get a place of your own and had a spare key made for you. Kakashi handed Haku the key. You can pick up your stuff from Sakura's later. Have a look around, you've got the day off today, so settle yourself in. Naruto won't mind, it's his responsibility seeing as it was his idea to bring you back with us. I suggest having Sasuke and Sakura taking you to meet Team 8 and 10 at some point today. What else? Tomorrow is your first official mission as a Konoha ninja and a part of Team 7, so enjoy today. Haku nodded. Thank you Kakashi-sensei. She seemed a bit awestruck at being in Naruto's apartment and it showed on her face. Kakashi's eyebrows rose at this. Tell that to Naruto when he gets back, it was his idea after all. Looks like Naruto has picked up a fan. Sasuke and Sakura were still outside. But Naruto stood in the middle of the clearing, panting heavily. The Sannin had been true to his word and they began training that afternoon, starting with Taijutsu. The white-haired Sannin stood across from him, doing a little dance. Whilst drinking more sake, he was also singing some sort of drinking song. He can throw me around whilst drunk. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't worry kid. I have a cunning plan. Naruto had the mental image of a grinning Kyuubi and then the Kyuubi told him his plan. Not nice, I like it. I knew you would, you're rubbing off on me I think. Jiraiya suddenly stopped doing his little dance. The song he was singing died on his lips as he saw that he was surrounded by very naked females, at least 40, all of which were carrying some form of weapon, from daggers to greatswords. A sudden explosion of blood and a girly scream later found Jiraiya lying on the floor, blood still coming from his nose. What on earth was that? A genjutsu? He asked whilst staring at the heavens. Yup, I made it a couple of days ago, but I tweaked it just now. It casts a genjutsu that makes the person think they are surrounded. You weren't ready for it so I could get you with it. I made condition of your opponents just for you. Jiraiya raised his head, he froze at the dull crimson gleam coming from behind Naruto's eye patch. Oh, you have something under that headband to hide, This I must see. It was Naruto's turn to freeze. I already know most of it Gaki. Don't worry, the third said you would probably tell me yourself eventually, although if I understand rightly he hasn't seen under that headband either. He said you had some strange abilities, though he has no idea about those either. Naruto nodded at this. Only 3 people have seen under it, one blanked out so she doesn't know, Kakashi-sensei's seen it, and so has Iruka-sensei, and those 2 have promised not to tell anyone about it. Jiraiya smiled to himself, alright, I'll keep my mouth shut too. Now, again, just Taijutsu this time Jiraiya shouted as he resumed his song and dance. Sighing, Naruto charged again, and his face met Jiraiya's fist. 4 days later outside the gates of Suna. The sun was setting when the duo arrived at the Great Walls of Suna. They approached the gates, and a sentry halted them, droning, "State your business." He looked bored out of his mind. The sage drew himself to full height and announced, "Jiraiya of the Sannin from Konoha and Naruto Uzumaki, Genin from Konoha, here on a mission from the Hokage." The sentry's jaw dropped at the name of the legendary Sannin before whispering to his companion, who sped off. "Please wait here, sir, a guide to the Kazakuge's tower will be here momentarily." Jiraiya gave a sigh and started scribbling in his notepad. Naruto took this as a sign to get some practice done, and he drew a water balloon out of a small bag attached to Despair's belt, which was now across his lower back, hilt at the left. He carried Kitsune across his back, the hilt above his right shoulder. He held the water balloon in his hand for a minute before the water balloon started going crazy, like something was trying to break out from it. Moments later, the water did, soaking Naruto's dry hand. The remaining sentry's eyebrows rose at this. Jiraiya ignored him and looked up from his notebook at Naruto. "Nice work, Gaki. After we visit the Kazakuge, we'll get you started on the next step." Naruto nodded as he took out another water balloon and repeated this, only slightly faster. A short while later the sentry returned with a blonde-haired girl. She had a fan strapped to her back and a Suna forehead protector around her neck. "Alright, my name is Temari, I'm the Kazakuge's daughter, I'll take you to him." It was clear she thought she was above the task at hand. "Ooh, my kind of woman." Naruto scowled at the demon's words. "Shut up, Kyub." "Kyub? Yeah, you don't deserve a demonic title anymore." At this point, Temari noticed Naruto's expression and made one to match. "Whatever, I am so going to like this place, oh so very much, you really are perverted." As Temari made eye contact, Naruto felt a sudden twinge in his right eye. His hand jumped to hold the right side of his head and Temari turned away. "Hey, anyway, let's go." "You okay, Gaki?" Jiraiya asked, concern written on his face. "It's nothing, just the heat, come on, let's go already." Naruto moved forward to follow their guide. "What did you do, Kyub?" "Nothing much, just made your life more awkward than it already was. And hopefully mine so much better." Jiraiya just shrugged at Naruto's response before following. "What are you hiding? I would very much like to know." Temari continued her cold demeanor. Naruto looked at her back, trying to figure out just what the demon fox meant when he sneezed. Jiraiya grinned like a pervert finding another. "A pretty girl is saying bad things about you." Moments earlier, in Konoha, Aku pulled the package from underneath Naruto's bed with triumph. "I knew it. Naruto's a pervert," she exclaimed, opening the package. "And what a pervert," she continued, seeing the literature inside. Moments later, back in Suna, Naruto rubbed his nose and sniffed when he stopped dead, smelling that familiar scent. Oh, no, it was very similar to the scent Sakura made when near Sasuke or the girl in the ramen shop when she saw Kakashi. "Oh, yes." Temari looked back at Naruto. Once she caught his eye, she blushed and turned back. "Oh no you didn't." "Oh yes I did. I am going to kill you. That is called suicide, the coward's way out. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it. You made it, I never asked for this." "But, you didn't complain." "I'm complaining now." It was really more of moaning and disbelief. As this argument escalated within Naruto's mind, Jiraiya looked at the blonde Konohinin, a puzzled expression on his face. He doesn't seem like his attention is always fully there. Does this mean that he's already in contact with the Kyuubi at such a high level? Jiraiya followed Temari through Suna. He looked at the Sunanin with interest. She would occasionally look at Naruto before blushing slightly and looking away, only to look again a minute later. Meanwhile Naruto's attention shifted between her, his surroundings, and his inner world. Hold on, this could be one epic book. The cold, distant daughter of a Kase, rendered completely defenseless against a dark, mysterious ninja from another village, haunted by the demons within the depths of his mind. "I am a genius." The Sannin gave a small perverted laugh that went unnoticed by the two genin. He began writing in his notepad. However, the demons within Naruto's minds were not quite haunting the ninja, as much as merely tormenting his sanity. "Reverse it now, Kyub. Now." "No, you do it." "You know I can't, I haven't been able to fully master the techniques you taught me, let alone something I've never seen before." "You fix it. Don't make me come in there." "You can try, I'll win." This psychological warfare between the two minds in one head continued until the party reached the door of the Kazakuge's office. Temari knocked on the door, shortly afterwards a shout came from within, "Come in." Temari led the way into the room, bowing to the man in the blue and white robes behind the desk. "Kazakuge-sama, I have brought the visitors as requested." She turned and was about to leave when the Kazakuge responded, "Wait outside, you can escort them to their hotel once we have concluded business." Temari just nodded and left, closing the door behind her. "Eh? Aren't they father and daughter? Can you feel the love?" "No, that's the problem. Page families are like that. Just look at Minyu, he spends half his time trying to kill Gramps." Naruto didn't respond as he and Jiraiya entered the room. The Kazakuge looked up from his work and said, "Well then, to what do I owe this surprise, Jiraiya?" "Well, the Hokage asked us to track down and retrieve my old teammate, Tsunade, who just so happens to be here in your Suna," replied Jiraiya. The Kazekage seemed happy about this. So will you be taking her back to Konoha? She really is quite a bother. No one seems to be able to confirm her location, but we do know that she hasn't left the village. If we can convince her, that is, we've been ordered to not use force. I'll also be training my apprentice here while attempting to bring my teammate back since we have around 5 weeks. Actually, seeing as Suna has the most wind types, perhaps some training from Suna wouldn't go amiss as well, since he's also a windy. That would give me some more time for my research. If it gets her out of here and helps your research, then I will naturally do everything I can to assist. Tamari outside happens to be the strongest wind user we have at Genin level, one of the strongest in the entire village in fact. Her mission can be to teach your apprentice, leaving you to do the important work. Yep, sounds like Tsunade. Jiraiya nodded. That will do very nicely. Tamari, yelled the Kazekage. The door opened and the blonde Sunanin entered the room. I want you to escort these two to their hotel. You will also help Uzumaki Naruto, Jiraiya's apprentice, in his wind element training. You will visit them tomorrow and work out a training timetable. You will treat this as a C-class solo mission, so you will be detached from your team temporarily. Tamari stood there for a moment until realization hit her. Why you want me to train him? Alone? For how long? Neither Jiraiya nor the Kazekage missed her stutter or her blush, neither reacted visibly. Jiraiya, however, was scribbling furiously into his notebook, hidden behind his back. This is gold. The Kazekage, however, seemed slightly sterner than usual. For the duration of their stay, for more than that you'll have to ask them. Tamari turned to Jiraiya, since her blush deepened when she saw Naruto. She stuttered out another question. How long will you be staying? This is too good. Thought Jiraiya, scribbling notes furiously. At most. Just short of 5 weeks. The Kazekage then noted, however, it could also be just a few days, so don't. Jiraiya flashed him the notebook, at which point the Kazekage understood, let a moment go to waste. And with that, Naruto started the most interesting 5 weeks he had ever had yet. 2 weeks later, Naruto was sprawled on the dusty ground. He stared at the bright sky, sweat shone on him, his swords and jacket long since discarded. Tamari stood nearby, panting heavily and blushing deeply, though not quite as bad as the day they first met 2 weeks ago. In that short time, however, Naruto's training had gone better than anyone had expected. With Jiraiya, Naruto had improved his Taijutsu, Kinjutsu and Ninjutsu. With Tamari's elemental training, however, he had already managed to split the leaf perfectly and was starting to learn his first K's jutsu, cutting whirlwind technique. After a short break, Naruto stood up and unsheathed Kitsune. Standing in an attack stance, he brought the blade in a diagonal slash, making a small sandstorm. Tamari just watched Naruto dumbly. It took me years to master this move, he could do by next week easily, 2 more at most. Naruto turned around, showing his trademark grin, which faded into a frown as he saw the person in the distance. Hey Tamari. Who is that over there? Tamari turned round and her face paled. Oh, my brother, Gaara. Shukaku. Who? That Gaara kid contains the one-tailed beast, like you carry me, but his seal is substandard, so he's no contender for the yearly Not a Psycho award. So? We just have to get Iro Sennin to fix it cool, right? Not that simple. Why? He's a contender for the yearly Definitely a Psycho award. But that there was a swirl of sand and Gaara was stood suddenly closer, about a foot away from Naruto. The remaining color from Tamari's face vanished as Gaara said, your blood, it would be so sweet. Georgia Gaara, wait. Naruto, however, stood his ground, looking Gaara in the eye. With a smile, Naruto lifted the headband covering his right eye and sure enough, Gaara's eyes began to bleed. He did not, however, fall. Ah, Kyuubi, that must be you. Gaara looked up, his green eyes turning golden, what sanity he had leaving him. Naruto could see that the demon was taking over Gaara's unconscious body. And he's the winner. Gaara. Stop. Tamari rushed to what she believed to be her brother. Naruto, however, sped between them, stopping her. That's not Gaara, he said, both eyes now red, his whiskers and fangs growing more prominent. Tamari looked shocked and a single thought went through her head. He's like Gaara. Naruto gripped Kitsune hard as it glowed a brilliant white. He raised the blade above his head as Shukaku turned to face them. Naruto brought the blade down, crying out, cutting whirlwind. Tamari couldn't believe what she just saw. Naruto used her own technique to knock down Gaara in his frenzy, something she couldn't do and something even the Kazekage had difficulty doing. Gaara's head rose and Shukaku roared with rage, how dare you. But Naruto had already dropped his blade and was rushing towards Gaara, hands spinning around, forming a Rasengan. That won't be enough to knock him out, kid. I know. Naruto cried this as red chakra started to spill into the orb. Oni Rasengan. Arg. Gaara and Shukaku both cried out his pain as the red sphere disintegrated Gaara's sand defenses and into his chest. His screams ended and he passed out. Naruto got up, checked Gaara's pulse, saw that he was alive and breathing, and stood to full height, wavering. He then saw Tamari rushing towards them when Jiraiya appeared between them in a puff of smoke. So you ready to go, Gaki? I have a lead on we. Hey Iro-sennin, Naruto interrupted. I need you to do something for me, he said as he collapsed face down in the sand. Naruto woke up, face in the pillow. It was an unfamiliar pillow, so he didn't move. Instead he sniffed. That's Temari's scent, she's either here or I'm in her room. She doesn't smell like she does when she's around me, so I'm probably alone. What do you think, Kyub? Silence. Kyub. His head felt empty, lonelier than it had for a long time. He realized that the Kyuubi wasn't in his head. Naruto decided that this could be a perfect chance for some much needed me time. He was just about to start contemplating the mysteries of the universe when. So, you're up. Naruto froze. How had he not sensed Temari? The chill moved down to his bones when he realized. I've been out for days, so she hasn't been subject to Kyuubi's genjutsu. Oh crap, she's realized she's not actually attracted to me and that something's up in Ginati. Hi, Temari. Spill it. This wasn't what Naruto was expecting, huh? You're Jinchuriki, like Gaara. Host of the nine-tailed Kyuubi if I'm right. Naruto paled, a completely different type of fear. This was the first time anyone had him cornered like this. You already have a high level of contact with the Kyuubi, judging from the amount of times you zone out for a few seconds. You also know how to use its chakra, if that Oni Rasengan is of any judge. More likely, it's been teaching you things, like that my brother's seal was defective. Naruto suddenly found an escape rope from this dangerous topic. How is he? Did Jiraiya's? Temari spun Naruto round to face her. His right eye was closed. He was in his boxers and a t-shirt, no headband to cover his demonic eye. He's fine, he should be himself when he wakes up, and I have you to thank for that, but first things first. She glared into his eyes, and Naruto had only one thought. Oh crap. Before he could do anything, her hands were on his face and pushed up his closed eyelid. She didn't even flinch at its demonic appearance. Thought so? Naruto blinked. Wait, what? You covered your eye, yet had perfect depth perception. Only logical explanation was you were hiding something. No way would anyone copy Haddock's lack of style without a good reason. Actually, Kakashi-sensei hides a Sharingan under there. She looked mildly surprised at this, but then nodded. Makes sense, he is called the copy ninja after all. So, how'd you get your eye? What's it do? Naruto gulped. He was seriously stuck with no choice, so he told her everything between the first time the Kyuubi spoke to him, through Mizuki's betrayal, and about the Chikara Kyoku. Temari listened through it patiently, and at the end of it, she asked, you mentioned it has other abilities, what like? Naruto almost began to sweat at this point. There's one for making an opponent think they're surrounded called Shinkiro Kokomu, one for night vision that I like to call Yomimi, and one for telling if a person is lying or concealing emotion called Hikari Haiko. And one that can apparently control emotion, but I can't actually use that one myself, nor do I really want to, but she doesn't need to know. Do you have one for controlling emotion? Naruto actually felt the sweat on the back of his neck at this point. I take that as a yes then. Temari actually looked disgusted at this. How could you? Naruto turned to face her and decided to come clean at this point, realizing that Grubby wasn't going to cut it here. I can't use it, the Kyuubi can. I'm sorry, but I had no idea it could do that, and frankly, I'm disgusted with it myself. Some friend you are. I was even doing you a favor. Naruto sat bolt upright on the bed. When the hell did you get up? He noticed the shock on Temari's face, and he realized he just said that out loud. He looked at Temari and said sorry. Don't apologize to her. I'm the one who's hurt. It's your fault we're in this mess. No, it's your fault. You should have slept with her when you had the chance. Naruto's brain temporarily shut down at this lack of logic. How would that have worked exactly? Surely I would be worse off for becoming a rapist. It's only rape if she says no. You were controlling her. She couldn't say no. Either way, you'd be feeling fairly awesome right now and could probably wing your way out of this mess. Naruto got out of the bed clutching his head. As he reached for his clothes he failed to notice Temari blush for a moment, then look away. He walked out of the room, tugging on his trousers while muttering, I need a strong drink, beer, sake, paralyzing venom, anything to shut that nutjob up. He appeared to have forgotten all about Temari at the moment, and she made no attempt to remind him. It wasn't until a moment after he left that Temari regained her composure and wiped the blood from her nose. The second thing Naruto didn't notice was that he forgot to shove his business back into his boxers. Naruto found his way to the kitchen and was rummaging in the fridge when he realized that he wasn't alone. He looked up and saw Gaara. He was eating a bowl of cereal in his pajamas, despite the fact that it was at least midnight. Gaara offered Naruto the box, asking sugar puffs. Naruto poured himself a bowl and filled it with milk. Gaara passed him a spoon. Thanks, Naruto mumbled. Gaara looked down at his feet. I ought to be saying that to you. I'm sorry. Naruto looked at him and swallowed his mouthful of sugary honey goodness. At first, Naruto was worried that Gaara would see his right eye. He's left the headband upstairs, but he appeared to have gotten away with it in the darkness. He decided to be of some comfort to him. Don't be, you had no control over yourself, you can still make up for it. There you go again, helping everyone you meet just because they've suffered just like you have, look where that's gotten you in the past. Then again, that's a weak argument, Haku's pretty hot and all over you. I have no idea what you are talking about, Haku's my friend. That's what you think, that's the truth. Whatever. Meanwhile, in Konoha, Haku was lying on Naruto's bed, reading his literature. She rubbed her nose and said to herself, a handsome boy must be talking about me, hope it's Naruto or maybe it's just a pretty girl. And back in Gaara's house, Gaara smiled at Naruto as he continued his internal argument with Kyuubi. At least you two have some sort of decent relationship. Shukaku just tells me to kill and kill and kill, I'm sick of it. Naruto broke out of his discussion to comfort the depressed Jinchuriki. You just need to learn how to control it, put a leash on it, that kind of thing. Who's got a leash on who, you worthless dog? Naruto rubbed his headache as he continued, what I mean is to establish a link with your demon, communicate with it, let it help you, but don't let it control you. His headache worsened as his own monster went ballistic inside his own skull. I'll even teach you how if you show me the booze. Gaara was surprised by this offer, as he reached for the sake. I thought you were training with Temari. Naruto shook his head, gratefully accepting I've pretty much got wind chakra down, I'm just using the training as an excuse to keep out of Jiraiya's research. He downed the half-pint bottle with a shudder. Ah, that's better, shuts him up like you wouldn't believe. Gaara was impressed at this. Naruto looked at Gaara. Well, I'm off to bed, night. Gaara smiled at him. Thanks. Good night. Naruto put his empty cereal bowl into the sink and walked towards the stairs. He caught Gaara's eye in the mirror and his right eye suddenly killed. Naruto winced, then paled as he reached realization. Hey Kyuubi. What did you just do? Made your life a living hell. No, you didn't. I did. A homophobe like you. What do my double standards have to do with my revenge? Oh, no. Ga. Do not want. Naruto relaxed and began to climb back up the stairs to the room he woke up in. It didn't have many personal belongings inside, so it was unlikely that it was Temari's. So, what did you do? The Kyuubi already used Yum Kunran on him, means that he'll be getting 8 hours solid of Taijutsu training in his sleep. Naruto thought about this. You told me about that one, don't you need to know the skills you're teaching? I know Taijutsu. Naruto laughed with scorn, getting into bed. Yeah, whatever, and he fell asleep. The next morning, Naruto woke up with an uncomfortable yet pleasant feeling of warmth on his back. He rolled over and found an unconscious Temari in her pajamas. Does everyone in the sand sleep in pajamas, or just this family? More importantly, her bra's over there. What? Okay, what the hell happened? Well, Watson, it appears that she didn't realize that you were sleeping here and went to bed. She's probably been watching you without sleeping as you healed. Holy crap, this is her room? More importantly, I appear to be able to control your right arm right now. Sure enough, Naruto's arm was sliding up Temari's waistline and there was nothing he could do about it. Damn it, hands, listen to me. But they like my idea so much more. This was getting a bit much for Naruto, whose nose was starting to bleed. He managed to cross his fingers behind Temari's back and release the cage bunshin. Oh, come on. That's cheating. Naruto opened the door and walked into the room, quietly picking up his things so his body control. Oh, I was lying. What? That was all you? Naruto notices that Temari was starting to wake up, so he rushed out of there. However, in his haste, he forgot his Konoha headband and longsword. He got downstairs and found Gaara asleep on the table. Naruto forced his trousers on and positioned his headband over his right eye. He rummaged through the fridge and, after liberating several items from the fridge, he wrote a note for Temari. Temari, gone training, back later, Naruto. P.S. I stole your brother. After deciding this was enough, he slung the sleeping Gaara over his left shoulder, a bag with several lunches and despair over his right. He went through the door and jumped towards the training ground, eating breakfast along the way. Alright Gaara, training begins. First things first, let's have a quick sparring match to see how well you fight with Shukaku. Naruto was about as energetic as Gaara wasn't. I lost all my sand jutsu though I can't fight. Naruto sighed. Alright then, straight out to jutsu. From what I know, you've never needed it before, so now's the perfect chance to learn. Gaara perked up at this. Funny you said that. I had a weird dream last night. Naruto was surprised why the Kyuubi grinned. Gaara began to shift into a stance, almost a nightmare really. A guy who looked like you, only with red hair, demonic eyes and a psycho grin, put me through hell teaching me Taijutsu. It was insane. Naruto began to pale as the Kyuubi's words last night rang through his head. I know Taijutsu. Naruto looked at Gaara's stance. His left foot was forward, his right at a 90-degree angle at double shoulder width behind it. He was hunched over, his weight shifting continuously from his front and back legs. His left arm hung limp between them, while his right arm was in a fist by his waist, ready to strike. What is that stance? Not telling. This is my revenge. Naruto got into his own fighting stance. His muscle strength isn't much at all, he's not going to hurt me much. Naruto's stance was closer to his walking stance, but with his forearms at head height, not unlike a boxer. However, unlike a boxer, Naruto was also shifting balance between his feet, occasionally lifting his front foot off the floor. I know, I just want to see you get owned by a total newbie. The penny dropped as Gaara charged forwards. You planned this last night. You couldn't have predicted we'd have a Taijutsu match. The Kyuubi grinned as Gaara kicked into Naruto's guard. Temari isn't the only one I can give funny ideas to. Gaara then span round, sending his other foot towards Naruto's head. Naruto released his elbow's grip on Gaara to block the side kick, earning him a swift kick in the chest. Gaara seemed just as surprised at his skill as Naruto. I know Taijutsu. Naruto got up and lowered his center of gravity, putting his left hand forwards, taunting Gaara. Show me. That would have been much more badass if you hadn't stolen it from that movie once. Shut up. Kankuro entered the kitchen and started to make an omelet. He reached into the fridge to grab a carrot, only to find them all gone. He sighed and settled for pepper instead. He chopped it up and added it to the pan of eggs and put it into the oven to cook. While he waited, he poured himself a glass of orange juice and walked over to the table, where he saw the note. Temari, gone training, back later, Naruto. P.S. I stole your brother. Kankuro quickly put 2 and 2 together. Idiot. Gaara's barely healed after what you did to him. He finished his glass and ran out of the door. The door burst open again as Kankuro rushed to turn off the oven. He was about to leave the omelet when he saw that it was done. Wrapping it in a napkin, he ran out of the door again to the training grounds. An hour after they began, the two ninja were still at it. Gaara was keeping up with Naruto, slowly getting more and more used to this new experience. Who knew that Taijutsu could be so fulfilling? He sent a roundhouse kick to Naruto, who blocked it with his knee, then stepped forward and sent the same kick back at Gaara. He blocked, only to find out too late that it was a feint and the real kick was homing in on his head fast. Too late to block, Gaara braced himself, but the kick never came. Yes. Now that's what I'm talking about. Gaara turned to look and saw that Naruto's shin had been blocked by a pillar of sand, which then fell apart. Naruto fell back onto his backside, panting. Gaara just stood in amazement, trying to catch his breath. Naruto grinned, covered in sweat. See? You can still use the beast's power. You just need to remember not to rely on it or it'll consume you. So that's why you never listened to me. I never listened to you because you're an idiot. Gaara sat on the ground, reaching for the bag. He grabbed 2 bottles of water just as Naruto got kicked in the head. Kankuro. Naruto's attacker turned to Gaara, are you alright? I came as fast as I could. Gaara got up, yeah, I'm fine. Why wouldn't I be? Kankuro looked confused. Wasn't Naruto using you as a punch bag or something? It was really a two-way thing. Kankuro looked apologetic. Oh, so it actually was training, sorry about that. He looked down at the person under his feet. We cool Naruto. Dead off. What was that? Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke and Kankuro was stood in a shrinking shadow. He looked up to see a falling Naruto, just in time to get a face full of boot. How do you like it? You're getting good at that surprise cage bunchin thing you do, I didn't even see you set it up. Naruto calmed himself down and stepped off Kankuro. Well, since you're here, you can help. Kankuro paled and then grinned. The three were sparring until nightfall. Temari woke up around noon. She hadn't slept in a few days, what with Naruto and Gaara recovering in his and her bedrooms. She didn't like the way Jiraiya grinned when she offered her bed for the unconscious Naruto, but she needed it to get the information she wanted. However, she didn't expect him to sleep for 36 straight hours. As she got up, she noticed that a few things were wrong. One of them was that Naruto left his sword, Kitsune. That was only to be expected, since he wouldn't really be facing any enemies while he was here. Another thing that was out of place was the fact that Naruto had left his Konoha headband on the bedside table. Again, that's where she put it when she put him to rest, but no self-respecting ninja would leave home without their headband. Then again, it must be fairly awkward to be the only leaf in a city of sand, so that was also reasonable. However, the fact that there was a warm Naruto-shaped groove in her bed right next to where she was sleeping required a lot more explaining. She was just starting to get angry when she noticed the shape and position of the groove relative to her. Holy crap, I crawled into the bed he was already in. Temari tried to justify herself, saying she was tired, it was dark, she couldn't have known, and that it was her bed and Naruto had no business in it. But considering that she never actually told him that and the fact that no ninja would actually get that tired worried her more and more as her face got redder and redder. She didn't get out of the bed for another few hours. At night, the three hit the bar. Naruto noticed the glares Gaara was getting. Reminds me of home. Kankuro turned to the other two. They like this with you back in your village. Naruto looked down again. Sort of, only they don't fear me so much as pity me, but yeah, the hate is just the same. Gaara sighed, they just can't seem to accept me as human. Naruto looked around the bar, then something caught his eye and his grinned his special grin. Oh yeah. Naruto turned and grabbed Gaara by the wrist. Come on. He said, dragging the Sans demon onto the stage. Picking up 2 microphones, he passed one to Gaara and selected a song on the karaoke machine. The soft music started to play and Naruto sang a melodic note yay. At this point the rest of the bar turned in horror as Naruto continued to sing. You're my fire the 1D series. People were just about to flee when Gaara raised his mic to his lips and sang. Believe when I say I want it that way. At this point the drums kicked in as crowd horror turned into utter disbelief as Naruto began to dance. But we are 2 worlds apart. Gaara joined in the rhythmic movements, singing, can't reach to your heart. When you say. Then Naruto stepped in front of his partner, crying out that I want it that way. Tell me why. Ain't nothing but a heartache. Tell me why. Ain't nothing but a mistake. Tell me why. I never wanna hear you say. And in unison, they both cried out I want it that way. The next morning, Naruto and Gaara were up fairly early and met each other in town. Temari got stuck looking after the hungover Kankuro, but Gaara suspected that she was just avoiding Naruto. As they walked down the street, they both noted the looks and whispering as Gaara passed Naruto his headband and sword. The news of the singing, drunken Gaara had spread fairly quickly and it's somewhat difficult to fear someone singing requests while wearing a paper crown. After the first song, it was hard to get him off the stage. I love a happy ending. Especially the ones with booze. Early the next morning, Temari was sitting on a cliff face, thinking. She knew that Naruto, or at least the Kyuubi inside of him, had used some kind of genjutsu on her to make her think she had fallen in love with Naruto. She knew this, and through not seeing him for over a week since their discussion, she knew that she was no longer affected by any genjutsu he'd placed on her. So why am I feeling like this? Maybe it was what he had done for her brother, maybe it was that he mastered her technique in less than a fortnight, maybe her mind had just associated Naruto with the effects of that genjutsu, or maybe it was him as a person. Temari sighed. She decided to go see him tomorrow. After she got her head straight. If she got her head straight. Temari growled as she tugged at her hair. She had another week or so before he left, she'd definitely sort things out with him by then. Meanwhile, in the streets of Suna, Naruto and Jiraiya were outside of a bar. Hey, Hiro-sennin, you sure she's here? Even though it was still before noon, it seemed lively. Naruto caught a man as he flew out of the window. That was nice of you. That was nice of you. Naruto was startled by how similar the Sennins and the Kyuubi's thought processes were. Thanks anyway, it's early in the morning, who would be drinking at this hour? Naruto got his answer just as Jiraiya stepped into the bar. Someone who still thought it was late. Someone who still thought it was late. Naruto watched as his sensei entered the bar. Okay, stop doing that, it's really creepy. And followed his teacher. Naruto saw Jiraiya approach a large pair of attached to a blonde woman who was having an argument with the barman. What do you mean I've had enough sake? Their friend, a smaller dark-haired woman, was trying to calm her down. Ooh, I like her. Naruto sighed. The blonde. The Kyuubi was shocked at Naruto. Dude, she's gotta be 50 at least. Are you blind? Naruto was confused, seems 30 to me. The Kyuubi stared in disbelief until realization hit. Ah, she's using a genjutsu. Tailed beasts and fully cinched Jinchuriki are immune to them, but you're probably seeing someone in their prime of youth. She's huge. In a good way. Wait until you see her without makeup on. Now, as for her friend, she's top-notch. A level-headed, practical and, get this, rational woman. Naruto took a seat so he could finish this conversation before he got to the bar. It was rare for the Kyuubi to talk about himself like this, and worth the wait. While your average girl would deal with a stressful situation by either suppressing it or venting it, just look at this girl. Naruto turned to look at the bar. Jiraiya was arguing with who Naruto assumed to be Tsunade, while the girl Kyuubi was interested in had moved over to the barman, whose shift had just started, and was ordering some sake. Temari would think about a solution to a problem, stressing over it until it drives her mad, while Haku would just go with the first solution that comes to mind without really thinking. Sakura would suppress it until breaking point, then she'll kick your ass, and Hinata would just run away crying. Not exactly flattering language. I'm talking about how great this girl is, who cares about those losers? You until 2 minutes ago. Whatever. But see what she's just done. The problem was that her friend wanted booze, but the barman wouldn't give her any. What did she do? She waited for the barman to become distracted by a convenient argument and then ordered some sake from another barman. Genius. Naruto was surprised, never thought you'd be one for smart girls. I'm not, I just admire things so epic, only other epic beings notice their epicness. Naruto was about to reply when he saw that Jiraiya was calling him over to a table with Tsunade and the girl, who was now holding a piglet. She even has a cute pet. She's almost too perfect. Naruto started moving towards the table. Just don't use any mind control things to make her fall for me or anything. Ayub looked shocked. Why would I do that? I don't want you to have her. Good, because last time, she's mine. Naruto stopped, then smirked and sat down. Good luck with that, what with you being a demon fox and trapped inside a 12-year-old boy's head. We'll work something out. Jiraiya turned to his apprentice and introduced him, Gaki, this is Tsunade and Shizune, her assistant. Hey. Good to see you. HMPH, Shizune even her name. Naruto poured himself a saucer of sake and threw it down his neck. Already Kyuubi's voice was fainter. Naruto smiled. 2 hours, 16 minutes, 137 bottles of sake and 76 games of cards later, and Tsunade still hadn't won once. Even the pig, who Naruto learned was called Tauntaun, had won at least once. Naruto quickly learned that Tsunade loved gambling as much as she loved sake, except she was awful at it. Naruto seemed to be the most capable of holding their drinks amongst the bunch, while Shizune didn't appear to be drinking much, but Jiraiya and Tsunade were completely wasted. That kid, hick, can really hold his drink, Tsunade said to Jiraiya, while Shizune dealt out the cards for another game. You're telling me? Jiraiya drew himself to a full wavering height. This Gaki, right, can drink me under the table, carry me to the hotel, and, get this, he wouldn't even have a hangover the next morning. So, Shizune, what are you doing in Suna? Naruto hastily tried to change the subject before it became dangerous. Oh, we just travel around, drinking, gambling, skipping town after they try to collect what Tsunade owes. What about you? Oh, the Hokage sent us to find you. TW3 replied Naruto, almost forgetting Tauntaun. Tsunade sat bolt upright, Naruto's words having a more sobering effect on her than an angry letter from the taxman. Then again, Tsunade had seen plenty of those, so perhaps the seeing a stranger get reduced to ashes by a dragon, mere feet from your face, would be more appropriate. What for? Jiraiya forced himself up, not quite as sobered as Tsunade. Well, third's thinking about retiring again, and he needs a replacement to become the fifth. I'd do it, but I'm completely up to my eyeballs with the spy network and my research. Still writing those perverted novels, are you? I won several awards for Icha Paradise, you know. Your only rival wrote yaoi, and the board of judges were mostly men, of course you won. That doesn't change the fact that they continued this discussion for a good 10 minutes, then Shizune took control Tsunade about their request to become Hokage. What are you? No. Everyone at the table just stopped. Even the Tauntaun read the atmosphere. Naruto was the one who broke the silence. Why not? Jiraiya and Shizune turned to glare at Naruto, but Tsunade just looked down. That title Hokage took the lives of two people who meant the world to me. She turned to look at Naruto. Why would I take the job that killed two people I loved? Naruto considered this for a moment, then stood up. You know, my mission was to try and convince you if Jiraiya failed, but I can see it's pointless. Someone who can't even care for her own problems isn't fit to care for a village's. He turned and left the bar. That's a change from the usual you. You're back then. Well, I can't stand people who would rather wallow in self-pity than make an effort. You helped Haku, Gaara, Konoha, Inari, Sasuke, Sakura, I could go on. They're different. They wanted to change. They just didn't know how. Half an hour later, Naruto was walking back towards the hotel, albeit an unusual route. You're aware that you're being followed. Tsunade, for about 25 minutes, I know. You just gonna ignore her? Nah, slip into her mind, find out who her worst opponent is. Naruto grinned. I have a plan. Sounds cunning. I like cunning. Naruto felt the Kyuubi slip out of his mind as he stepped into an alleyway. I'm surprised at you. Tsunade had approached Naruto. You abandoned your mission that easily, you call yourself a Konoha ninja. I am, Naruto retorted. However, I also know the place has problems and it needs a decent leader just to stop the place going to hell. It'd need someone fantastic to sort it out, but I just don't think you're even competent. What was that? Tsunade's face and posture filled with rage. Just who the hell do you think you are? Audit threw in a painkiller jutsu. You've got maybe 10-15 minutes before you get the killer headache. Thanks, good call. Naruto faced Tsunade and lifted the headband covering his right eye. Naruto Uzumaki. Tsunade's rage swiftly turned into shock as Naruto continued. Also, I'm sorry for this. The shock turned into horror as Tsunade saw herself surrounded by the same two people, cloned dozens of times, before she collapsed. Naruto made sure she would be seen by someone and hopefully helped, then he ran at full pelt to the pharmacy. Jiraiya saw the whole thing from the roof but wasn't able to hear what was said nor see what Tsunade saw. Either way, the Kyuubi was involved somehow. That was a huge chakra spike, all of it demonic. Just what are you hiding, Gaki? He jumped down to pick up Tsunade and took her to Shizune, then went back to the pharmacy. Half an hour later, arg. Don't say I didn't warn you. It never hurts this much normally. That's because it builds up in pain, well you get used to it. Only difference is this time you joined the party at full swing. Sounds painful. Naruto turned around, holding an ice pack on his head, headache pills in the other hand. Jiraiya had just entered the room. I'll talk to you about Tsunade Latirg. Headache no. Jiraiya sighed and put his hand onto Naruto's head. Suddenly his headache was gone. Whoa, how'd you do that? Never become a drinker without knowing some good hangover cures. Huh? Naruto blinked as he left the hotel room, finding him in a sewer-like room, ankle-deep in water. Where am I? What, you've forgotten already? Naruto turned, finding a young man behind him. He had red hair, had a psychotic grin on his face, but otherwise looked like Naruto. The penny dropped when Naruto saw that his eyes were demonic red. Kyub. Who else? So I'm where you are. Why do you look like me? How do you know that you don't look like me, kid? Because it's my body, yours looks like a fox. You're right there, Gaki. Naruto turned round and saw Jiraiya. Thought this would be a good opportunity to talk, especially since you can't get out of here until you answer my questions. First, why does the Kyuubi look like Psycho Gaki? Naruto turned to Kyub. I'm a quasi-dimensional chakra demon, I can look like whatever I want to look like. Fair enough. Second, what did you do to Tsunade, and how did you know I saw? I could smell you a mile off. Ah, you can do that, now answer the main question. What I did to you, but another variant of it. And the chakra spike. That was me looking through her head. Hence Kit's headache. And what else did you teach him? They decided to tell Jiraiya about the eye techniques and about Onijutsu in general. Jiraiya considered all of this kind of like my senjutsu. Huh? Never heard of it. That's because hardly anyone masters it. Most who tried die in the attempt. Ah. I turned to ask, why do you sound so echo? Not my head. If you were in my skull you'd sound like this too. And the Kyuubi would sound like this. Naruto turned to Kyub, who asked, do I sound like that in your head? Seeing Naruto nod, he was surprised. Wow, that's weird. Alright, next question. I'll probably regret asking, but what's under the headband? Naruto just shrugged and lifted the cloth covering his right eye. Jiraiya saw it and fell backwards. Suddenly, Naruto found himself back in the hotel room, with the sage passed out on the floor. He fainted. That's a new response. Naruto got up and put Jiraiya to bed. He then noticed that he stank of sweat and booze, so he decided to take a shower and wash his clothes. Hey Naruto. What now? Do I really sound that freaky in your head? At night, Naruto found himself in the watery cavern again. Kyub. Over here. Naruto followed the voice and found the Kyuubi once again in his humanoid shape. What's up with that body? You never got round to telling me. Oh no, probably residual self-image from seeing your ugly mug in the mirror all the time, kid. Anyway, not what I wanted to talk to you about. Naruto didn't understand a word the Kyuubi just said, but he accepted its explanation. Alright, what did you want to talk to me about? I can talk to you in your dreams at will now. You don't say. That's my point. That shouldn't happen. I don't know much about this in jutsu or whatever, but the only kind of jutsu that would let this happen is Fuinjutsu. Naruto still wasn't following. The kind that sealed me inside you, kid. The Kyuubi punched Naruto in the face, the kind that pervy sage used to change that sand idiot's retarded seal with that damn scroll of his you dumbus reject. Naruto got back onto his feet, rubbing his face. You didn't sound demonic there, eh? What are you? Oh, right, that was weird anyway. Image what we could do if we got your hands on that scroll, kid. What like? The Kyuubi actually slapped his own forehead at Naruto's stupidity. For one thing, you could release me. Naruto shook his head. I was actually expecting you to try a different approach, but thanks for being honest. He turned to walk away. Wait, you're not going for it, kid. Naruto turned back, smiling what, and unleash a quasi-dimensional chakra demon back into the world. No thanks. Naruto walked through the bars and through the door. Kyub followed him, but couldn't get through the barrier. Heh, that kid's just as troublesome as his father. The next morning, the Kazukiyage's office. I take it that your mission was unsuccessful then. Jiraiya nodded. Tsunade left the day we made contact and we don't have time to pursue. Either way, she made her intentions quite clear. The Kazukiyage nodded. Well, I must thank you both for your gift. The Kazukiyage tapped the advance signed copy of Icha Icha Violence, due to hit the shelves in a few weeks, and also for what you have done for my son. Jiraiya put his hand behind his head. Oh, it was nothing really, I just. Thank you, Naruto. Jiraiya stopped dead. Hey. Thanks to you, my son is well on his way to becoming a fine ninja. Not only did you notice that the source of his madness was a defective seal, but you befriended him, brought him closer to his brother, and you made him strong in a whole new way he never knew, emotionally and physically. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Jiraiya turned to face Naruto, slack-jawed. Since his normal clothes were being washed, Naruto was temporarily wearing his old orange jumpsuit with the jacket tied around his waist in the heat. Despair was in his bag by the door and he was carrying Kitsune in his hand. Thanks. Jiraiya was clearly annoyed at this. Well, we really need to report back to the Hokage, so we should be on our way. Kazukiyage stood up. Please, at least join us for dinner tonight before you leave. It's the least I can offer you. Well, enticed by the offer of free food, Naruto eagerly announced that they'd love to. As the two made their way back to the hotel, Jiraiya stopped Naruto, disappointment showing on his face. Something wrong? Jiraiya sighed. Naruto, how long ago did we leave the village? About 4 weeks ago. Why? He called me Naruto, not good. And how long have we been in the Suna? 3. Why? Jiraiya sighed again. So when were you planning on doing this elemental training then? Naruto flinched at the sage's anger, while the Kyuubi laughed. Busted. I finished it. And when did you have time to train others? I finished it just before I met Gaara. Bull. No one can do it that fast. Naruto sighed and drew Kitsune. Holding it in both hands, it began to glow white. He raised it above his head and began to say the words cutting whirlwind when Jiraiya put his hand on the blade, neutralizing the chakra. I'll take your word for it for now, you've clearly made progress. I won't even ask about the Rasengan, that Oni Rasengan was top-notch. Naruto smiled at this praise. Mangaki, let's get some training done before nightfall. At night, Naruto, Jiraiya, Gaara, Kankuro, the Kazukiage and Temari all had dinner together. Fairly soon the sake was flowing, and it wasn't long before Gaara was leading the others in a clumsy rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody. Temari wasn't quite drunk enough for Gaara Mercury, so she walked outside to find Naruto was already outside. Caught in a landslide. Came Naruto's voice from inside. New escape from reality. Came the others. Hey. Temari said, sitting beside Naruto. I haven't seen a clone that can eat before. Naruto turned to her and smiled. Shadow clone, first technique I ever perfected. Temari was surprised at this revelation, but doesn't that require a huge amount of skill and chakra? It should be impossible for a Chunin, let alone a cadet. Naruto sighed. I'm like Gaara, remember? Only my dad died, so no one bothered to teach me anything but the bare minimum. I failed the Genin exam 3 times, you know. Temari seemed really shocked at this. Naruto continued, second and third time was my worst technique, the clone. Naruto laughed. I could barely create a single clone that could stand, let alone 2 that could interact, like everyone else. Eventually, one of the examiners told me about the village's cage scroll, and I stole it. I only got the first technique down before the same guy tried to kill me a couple of hours after I stole it. Guess what it was? Temari stared at Naruto. Kage Bunshin, obviously. Naruto shook his head. Taji Kage Bunshin. Temari's jaw dropped. That's impossible. It'd take a Kage a month to master it to a level to create 100 clones at once. Naruto smirked. I can do 1,000. Thanks to the fox's chakra, I can keep it up for hours. Temari couldn't believe it. No wonder he got wind chakra down so fast, he was probably slowing himself. Temari wondered why she didn't just ask him. Hey Naruto. Were you deliberately holding yourself back? During our wind chakra training? Naruto shook his head. Actually, it was pretty hard, but for once it was something I was doing. Demon Fox has no wind chakra, so I was relying on myself. Naruto smiled as he looked down through his knees. It was a good feeling. It was then Temari saw Naruto for who he was. Not dark mysterious ninja, nor as a demon fox, or even as someone who grew up in the same hell as her brother, but made something positive from it, but just as Naruto. She slid her arm round his shoulders, moving closer to him. Naruto turned to face her, and his blue eye widened in shock as she found pressure around his neck and pushed his back against the wall. Temari's face was close to his. Very close, so close he could smell her clearer than he could smell himself. He quite liked it. Her blush was near crimson, her arms around his neck, and she was pressing him against the wall. Her whisper was so quiet he only just heard it. I wanted to do this since I first met you. She closed the distance. Naruto didn't know how long they kissed for, but he did know it stopped when Kazukiage bellowed, so you think you can stone me and spit in my eye. The two broke off quickly, both equally surprised. The mood was killed and buried when Jiraiya cried out, so you think you can love me and leave me to die? Temari and Naruto looked at each other, blushed, then laughed. The whole thing was just ridiculous. After the laughter stopped, Temari stood up and Naruto grabbed her hand and stood up to kiss her. While Temari was surprised that he took such initiative, it was the pleasant kind. It was Temari who broke of this time, whispering, Fox is there, isn't he? Naruto smiled, replying, not when Sake's involved, as he moved in for Temari again. Take it, you forgive me? He said, kissing her. Temari surfaced again, but I'm gonna kick that fox's ass. She moved back into Naruto. And I weigh the wind, Blue sang Naruto's clone, completely oblivious to what was going on. Naruto and Jiraiya both ended up staying the night. Jiraiya passed out drunk at the table with the others, while Temari fell asleep in Naruto's arms. Seeing that his clone was wasted out of his skull, he chose not to release the jutsu, summoning 12 more clones instead. They got to work rolling the drunken men onto their sides to stop them from choking in the night and got to work cleaning the mess. As figured, for every party, there's one loser stuck in the kitchen. Naruto started to dispel the sober shadow clones and started putting blankets over everyone. You're back early. Kyuubi smirked. You didn't drink enough, kid. Not like you to leave the clone to do the partying while you clean up its mess. I was busy. Really? What could be more important than alcohol? Kyuubi noticed Naruto's expression as he draped a blanket over Temari's sleeping body. Oh, no freaking way. Yeah? So what? Naruto felt an invisible hand or paw smack into his shoulder. Nicely done, kid. You actually got a girl drunk. She was sober. And I thought you didn't stand a chance since wait, what? I kissed her because I wanted to, I know I wanted to do it because I only drank enough booze to shut you up. Naruto then released the cage bunshin and felt the Kyuubi fade as the alcohol and memories from his clone rushed in. Yep, I had the better night, and with those thoughts, he passed out on the ground. 20 pints of sake would do that to a 12-year-old boy, demonic host or not. That morning, the gates of Suna. Thanks again, Jiraiya. Oh, it's nothing, nobody likes a hangover. Naruto and Jiraiya were at the gates of the city with Temari and Gaara. Kankuro still had a bit of a hangover, even after Jiraiya's healing, and the Kazekage had to get back to work. Gaara extended his hand for Naruto's. Naruto, who's wearing the dark trench coat once again, shook his hand. He was carrying a rucksack with his belongings and despair inside, kitsune hung low across his back. The handshake continued for a few moments, and then Gaara pulled at Naruto and clapped his back. See you in a couple of weeks, man. Naruto smiled, I'll kick your ass again at the exams. The both laughed and pulled out of their hug. Naruto then turned to Temari, opening his arms for a hug, and was fairly surprised when she kissed him. Although not nearly as surprised as Jiraiya or Gaara. See you at the exams, right? Naruto asked her. Temari smiled. Don't you dare take it easy until afterwards. After Naruto and Jiraiya walked into the distance, Temari and Gaara turned back home. Gaara was the first to strike up a conversation. So, you two going out now? Temari was surprised at Gaara's question, but then smiled. No way, not yet. First we have the Chunin exams to deal with. Gaara laughed, come on, you really think that you and Kankuro are going to have it hard? I'm the one who needs to train, you two'll be fine. Temari looked serious. I thought as much, except Naruto's grades were the lowest in the academy. Gaara stopped dead in his tracks. You're joking. Temari turned around and shook her head. He even failed the Genin exam 3 times, and they only let him pass after he stole a Kenjutsu scroll from the Hokage and learnt the Taji Kage Bunshin. Gaara paled, then spoke. We need to get Kankuro. After a mile, Jiraiya stopped Naruto. Naruto, in between getting friends and girlfriends, did you actually manage to squeeze some actual training near your schedule while we were here? Naruto sighed, this again. I told you before, I got it down. Jiraiya didn't look happy. Really? Then show me your Rasengan. Naruto rolled his eyes and lifted his right palm upwards. As chakra began to collect, Jiraiya poked him in the stomach and Naruto flinched as a shock went up his spine and into his skull. When he fell down to his knees, Jiraiya looked down at Naruto and said without the fox. Naruto got up and tried collecting the chakra again. He then tried doing it two-handed, like Jiraiya had taught him, but he couldn't get the right motion for it and Jiraiya shook his head, disappointed. I thought so, you've become too reliant on the fox. One day the fox will betray you, and then you'll. Kage Bunshin. Jiraiya looked back up as he saw Naruto holding his hand behind him and a shadow clone was waving his hands over a perfectly formed Rasengan in the original's palm. Jiraiya was speechless. The shadow clone disappeared and Naruto brought the Rasengan in front of him, saying I know I tend to use Kyuubi's chakra and abilities. I know I could do more by myself. Naruto looked up, but I've tried that and it doesn't work. You can do things alone, but it works better if you do it together. Whether I use the damned fox or a shadow clone to help me form a Rasengan, is there any difference? It gets formed quicker and stronger with the Kyuubi. Jiraiya was surprised at Naruto's outburst as he continued, Kakashi-sensei has a Sharingan that was put into his body, but he can't control it, that's why he covers it up all the time. Because of that Sharingan, he's now the legendary copy ninja. If you have something, why shouldn't you use it? I have the Kyuubi sealed inside my body, so why shouldn't I use its power? Naruto then rammed the Rasengan into a tree, obliterating the trunk with ease. The 4th Hokage died sealing this monster inside of me, it would be an insult to not make the best use of his sacrifice. So what if everyone hates me because of Kyuubi? We're friends, and we rely on each other. That's why I don't want to fight alone, because it hurts, so please, undo what you just did, sensei. Jiraiya was stunned at Naruto's words, then smiled and placed his hand on Naruto's stomach again. Also, if you ever mention this again, I will kill you. Jiraiya removed the seal he had just placed on Naruto with a smile, alright. Oh, Kit, I'm touched. Naruto's blood froze. You heard that? The whole thing, friend. The Kyuubi began laughing his head off. Ah, that was hilarious, Kit. Jiraiya stood up, the Kyuubi's probably laughing at you right now, but here's something that ought to make up for it. He removed a scroll from his back and spread it out. Suddenly, the Kyuubi was all business. That's not our scroll, it's a summoning seal. Jiraiya explained, this summoning seal is a blood contract with the sage frogs. Trust me, they'll be of a great help in the— Can you hear the Kyuubi? Jiraiya sighed. No, but I can guess what it's saying from your face. As I was saying, this summoning contract. Yeah, got that, where do I sign? Jiraiya groaned, you're really rushing into this, you know. But Naruto had already bitten his thumb and stuck it to the correct point, letting the blood flow. Whoa, easy there, Gaki. Naruto stood up. That's it, right. Jiraiya just clutched at his head as Naruto walked away. "Where you going?" Naruto turned back at him, "Need a crap." Naruto checked that the sage hadn't followed him and he took his shirt off and pulled his orange jacket out of his bag with a pen. "What exactly are you planning on doing, kid?" "Looking at that summoning seal gave me an idea." Naruto began copying the markings on his stomach inside the jacket. "What is that exactly?" "You'll see." Naruto then began to recreate the frog summoning seal around the copy of his own seal, but with a few changes. For one thing, wherever it should have said Sage Frog, Naruto instead wrote Nine-Tailed Demon. Kyuubi figured out what Naruto was planning. "It's not going to work, kid." "How do you know?" "You've never tried anything like this." "But the fourth would have thought about this. If I could be summoned that easily, I would have made you do so ages ago." Naruto shook his head. "Jiraiya has a scroll intended to edit our seal, so that must mean that our seal must have been built to be adapted." Naruto began to look over his handiwork and burnt it into the lining of the spare jacket with chakra. "Hey. Gaki. You crapping your liver out or something?" Humming. Naruto rolled up the jacket and shoved it into his bag. "We'll finish this later." At night, as Jiraiya slept, Naruto was sitting by the fire, scribbling into a notepad. "You're obsessed with this idea, kid, you know that, right?" Naruto paused for a moment. "That's because if it works, we'll be unstoppable." "But it won't." "That's my point. I'll make it work." Ayub sighed at Naruto's thick-headedness. "It won't work, kid, that's my point. It can't work because there is a seal, made by a ninja much stronger than you, used a much stronger jutsu than you, and offered a much higher price than you, to keep me in." Naruto fixed his gaze. "Then I'll get started on it now, so it'll work when I'm a Kage. It's not about power. It's the higher law." Naruto blinked. Was the Kyuubi actually about to reveal something? "Mankind cannot gain anything without first offering something of similar value, kid. You cannot perform ninjutsu without chakra, you cannot run if you don't rest, you cannot move if you don't sleep, you cannot eat without paying for the food." Naruto interrupted. "Actually, I've done that lots of times." The Kyuubi shook his head. "Another lesson, kid, money is worthless. To eat, you pay with work to grow and prepare the food, but it goes deeper than that." Naruto was really interested now. "How deep?" "Very, but I'm not telling you. It's meaningless if you don't figure it out yourself, kid." Naruto wasn't disappointed, in fact he was impressed that the Kyuubi was actually leaving him room to do things on his own. "The point you need to get now is that everything has a price. Everything. The more you pay, the more you get. However, you can't outbid Yondaime, kid. He paid the ultimate price. I know that he died sealing you into me. Death. Death is nothing. Even if there is no afterlife, merely ending is nothing compared to what that idiot did to himself. You cannot undo what he did, kid. The idiot deserves better than that." Naruto shrugged. "You almost sound serious." Naruto stopped dead. For the first time since they met, the nine-tailed demon fox actually was serious. This was a line in the sand, and the message was clear. Naruto understood his position. "Alright then. Good. I'm still going to try and complete the summoning seal." Ayub froze. Was this child really so idiotic? "Don't get me wrong, I know I was out of line taking the seal so lightly." Naruto breathed. "However, I still think that the seal was meant to be used." The Kyuubi was shocked at this, then smiled. "Heh, don't say I didn't warn you, kid." The next few days traveling had a new kind of training. Back in the ninja academy, Iruka-sensei was the only one who had ever bothered trying to teach Naruto, and even that was rarely above the bare minimum. Before he met the Kyuubi, Naruto mostly copied the other students, tried to figure out what the teachers meant, did research in the archives before a librarian took the books from him, constantly telling him that those books were not for kids, even the academy books. Because of this, Naruto's actual knowledge of the ninja arts were limited, and even after the Kyuubi started teaching him, that was limited to what the Kyuubi knew, so Naruto knew nothing beyond ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu. Jiraiya was taking care of this problem though, and Naruto was learning all about herbs, which ones were medicines, which ones were poisons, and which made food taste good. This was another skill Naruto had to learn. Jiraiya wanted to teach Naruto about using herbs in cooking, but was shocked to learn that Naruto couldn't cook. Naruto spent a whole day with his hands in bear meat as Jiraiya taught him how to cook. Cooking is one of the greatest ninja arts, Gaki. Right up there with needlework, bartering, listening and breathing. He's talking crap, no self-respecting ninja would do that, kid. But Naruto started to see what Jiraiya was trying to get at. As the head of the spy network, Jiraiya taught that ninjas should see and hear without being seen or heard. At first Naruto thought that all spies became invisible and hid behind walls, but Naruto understood that with these basic skills, not only can a ninja take care for themselves, but they could get a job almost anywhere and gain information easily without having to use a single jutsu. Naruto asked about this and if combat-based ninjas use these. Are you kidding, Gaki? One of the strongest sword ninjas of all time made a living from selling his paintings and carvings alone, let alone the money he gained from missions, duels, and his books. Naruto was very surprised at this. He always thought that if you were strong enough to beat your enemy, then that would be enough. Naruto pulled out his notepad and started to jot down what he had learned that day while they ate supper. Writing a textbook Kid. Starting a notebook Gaki. The synchronism of the two teachers still scared Naruto slightly. Kind of, it's just that this stuff is good, I don't want to forget it. Jiraiya smiled. In that case, don't forget to write down what the Kyuubi teaches you. Huh? Seeing Naruto's puzzlement, Jiraiya smiled again. In fact, why not write down everything you learn? You can be just like Guy's pupil. Naruto thought for a moment, you mean that bushy eyebrows kid? What's his name, Air? Jiraiya laughed. Rock Lee, and he does have bushy eyebrows, doesn't he? Fairly accurate description if you ask me. That guy's crazy. I'm not pulling out a notebook every time someone says something. Meanwhile, back in Konoha. Achoo. Rock Lee sniffed and rubbed his nose. Must be someone talking about me, hope it's Sakura. Neji scoffed at his teammate, why would a girl be talking about you? Ignoring him, Rock Lee jumped to his hands and toes. Yosh. If I can do 1000 press-ups in the next 10 minutes, then Sakura is talking about me. Tenten looked confused, that makes no sense. Rock Lee, however, was in his own world. 10, 11, 12, 13. Neji turned to leave. Leave him alone Tenten, you know there's no getting to him when he's like this. Hold on. Tenten ran over to Rock Lee and placed a rock on his back just to make sure she's talking about you. 34. Thanks Tenten. 35. 36. Several miles from Konoha. What I meant was that you keep track what you learn, it's to help future generations really. Eh? One day, Gaki, you'll be training ninja, and they could benefit from knowledge that you've acquired, but it's so far in the back of your mind that you forget about it until you need it, or after one of your students could have used it and they suffered because of something you didn't teach. Battle strategies, even random thoughts are good to log down. Ask Kakashi tomorrow, I reckon he does it. Naruto was surprised really. We'll be back home that soon. Jiraiya smiled and shook his head. Sand to Leaf only takes a couple of days walking, a few hours if you're in a rush. You however, limp there. And whose fault is that? Yours. I told you to dodge. Yours, I too. Don't say it. Naruto climbed into his sleeping bag. Night. 3 days before Naruto's return, Hokage Tower. Kakashi stood in front of the old man's desk. The Hokage sat behind the old man's desk. I have something interesting to report, Kakashi started. The Hokage sighed, oh, good, I could do with something interesting. When talking to Haku, I noticed she started referring to Naruto as Naruto-sama. The old man's eyes widened, seriously. Kakashi shrugged, well, not all the time, but it's worth noting. The Hokage leaned back in his seat, a smile returning to his face. Very interesting, keep me updated. Both men let out a perverted giggle. The old man suddenly became serious. The reason I summoned you here Kakashi is because I just got a message from your student. Kakashi shrugged. So how is he? The Hokage looked down. Naruto and Jiraiya failed in their mission. Kakashi's eye widened, so Tsunade isn't coming back. The old man sighed. Unfortunately, she isn't. Jiraiya is going to be back in about 4 days, apparently he is teaching Naruto something as they travel. The Hokage now looked grim. It involves the Kyuubi, and Jiraiya said that it is imperative he learns this lesson. Kakashi nodded at this, as the Hokage continued, that is only the start of the bad news. Kakashi remained surprised. What else could have happened? Naruto met Gaara, the host of Shukaku. Kakashi's jaw would have dropped had it not been for his mask. What? Is he alright? The third smiled, more than alright, he knocked Gaara out and had Jiraiya fix the seal. Apparently his was substandard, which allows the demon to drive the poor boy insane and to murder. Kakashi had a look of confusion. But what would then? It dawned on him. Gaara isn't so insane anymore, is he? The old man's smile widened. Far from it, the boy's completely stable, and in gratitude the Kazekage gave us some important information, Jiraiya sent it ahead. 4 days later, Naruto's apartment. Naruto put his key into the lock of his door, only to find that it was already unlocked. Haku must still be here then. Oh, I like the sound of that. Naruto took a deep breath and cleared his mind, mentally blocking the Kyuubi. I'll have to thank Iro-Sennin for that. Naruto stepped through the door. Ramen was being boiled. It was good to be home. He inhaled the welcome scent and paled. Oh no. His nose picked up another smell, one he recognized well. No, hell no. Thoughts of Temari came to his mind and he blushed. Please let me be wrong. Please let me be wrong. He rushed into the living room of his modest apartment, sweating in panic. When he got there, the image was burned into his eyes, his brain process stopping entirely. Haku was sat on his couch wearing a pair of his boxers. Her long hair was wet down her back beneath a towel she had across her shoulders, and Haku, unconcerned with her half-nakedness, was reading a book with more books piled on the table. Naruto quickly averted his eyes and took in the state of the room. Clothes were scattered around the room, and he took in the fact that while a lot of Haku's underwear was on the floor, the majority were his. Since he was careful to tidy the apartment before leaving for the sand, Haku had evidently taken to wearing his boxers. Blood began to trickle from his second nostril at the sight and his brain functions began to return. Then he saw what the books on the table were and his eyes widened. Crap. She found them. His panic turned to confusion when he then saw the particular title she was reading. But that's A. Yuri 1. It was at this point that Haku looked up and smiled. There was a slight blush as she said the strangest sentence Naruto had ever heard while sober, aside from perhaps something Temari said. How was your mission, Naruto-sama? It was a wait, what? Sama. Since when did you call me that? By this time Naruto's entire face was red. You're looking after me. Or at least you would have been if you weren't on that mission. Blood was streaming from his nose, he then felt something impact him as something wrapped around his middle, and something soft and wet caught him in the face for a brief moment. Haku was suddenly wrapped around his middle, her face against the side of the neck. Naruto became very conscious of what Haku was not wearing, and it was actually easier to list what she actually was wearing. A pair of my boxers, that's it. The towel had been lost halfway across the room, and she was still his nose stopped bleeding, apparently crossing the point of no return. Haku pulled her head up from his neck and Naruto caught quite a good view. Haku saw where his eyes were and grinned, a grin Naruto would know all too well if he wasn't out of town for the past 6 weeks. Sometimes things just work out too well. She thought. Her face moved very close to his as she spoke with a slight waver in her voice. You know, I think I love you. Her lips pressed against his. Naruto's brain stopped here, so another part of his body took control and wrapped his arms around her. The kiss went on for several minutes until Haku eventually pulled away. Both were quite breathless. Naruto, starting to get his brain back together, spoke first. Yuri. Haku blushed here, actually apart from you. Naruto's head tilted to the side, puzzled. Haku looked back at Naruto. I like girls. Oh. Naruto's nose started to bleed again. Haku giggled and kissed him again. That makes you a woman with a penis. That's the worst kind. Naruto tried to clear his mind to shut the Kyuubi, something that was understandably difficult in the current situation. Even worse than the angry blonde ones from the sand village that are gonna kick your ass for making out with a half-naked roommate. Thankfully Haku had her eyes closed and didn't notice as Naruto paled. Try not to die, you're breathing for 2. Several hours later, Sakura and Sasuke were at Team 7's meeting point. Once again, Sakura was yelling, where are Haku and Kakashi-sensei? Sasuke flinched from the sound and then twitched as he felt a familiar presence approaching fast from behind. Not again. He sidestepped, but the figure rushed straight past him. Sakura felt someone give her a hug from behind. She sighed, hello Haku. She always does that then. Sasuke turned around at the familiar voice. Sakura did the same once she had extracted herself from Haku. You back then? Stated Sasuke, sarcasm in his voice. What gives you that idea? Naruto replied with equal sarcasm. Naruto sidestepped to the left as he the killing intent behind him, which went flying past in a streak of pink. Sakura's still mad. His voice held a slightly bored, yet questioning tone. Sasuke just nodded as Sakura turned, what do you think? You left without a word and left Kakashi-sensei to tell us. Naruto raised his visible eyebrow, so the old man sent Kakashi-sensei to do it. Sasuke put his hand on Sakura's shoulder, the effect was almost immediate and she calmed down. Naruto let out a mental sigh. So, does Haku hug everyone? Just about every person she comes into contact with. Replied Sasuke with a smirk. Hey, not everyone. Yelled Haku as she jumped onto Sasuke's back. Sakura and Sasuke laughed. Naruto joined in on the laughter. That explains my welcome then. He thought to himself once he recovered. A swirl of leaves later and Kakashi appeared behind Naruto, getting him in a headlock, which failed as Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kakashi stumbled as his captive disappeared. How the hell does he do that? Wondered Kakashi as Naruto came flying down from the rooftops, fist headed for his teacher's head. Kakashi threw a kunai into his student's face and kicked another Naruto in the stomach, exposing both of his new attackers as shadow clones. Kakashi span around and grabbed another clone by the face, single-handed, throwing him into the wall. Instead of disappearing, however, it went straight through and Kakashi realized that he had just thrown his 12-year-old student, full force, straight through a foot of concrete. Oh, Naruto. Sakura and Haku cried out in unison, Sasuke rushing to dig his teammate out of the rubble. Haku turned to her stunned sensei, distraught. How could you do that? You could have killed him. I was sure it was a clone. Kakashi was clearly in shock for what he'd just done. Sasuke stood up, grinning. He's not there. Huh? Kakashi twisted round to find an uninjured blonde genin holding a kunai against his teacher's back. Gotcha sensei. In the Hokage tower, the third Hokage laughed as he heard Kakashi's yell, one of both relief and defeat. After the morning's boring generic D rank mission. Alright, listen up, Kakashi gave the team his eye smile. Next week is the Chunin exams. Oh yeah. The four voices could be heard from quite a distance away. Kakashi turned to Naruto and gave him a sadistic grin, maybe. Naruto stopped cheering and gulped. This about this morning. Kakashi gave an evil giggle. Luckily for you Naruto, you have to do the thing by yourself, at the request of Jiraiya. Naruto began sweating like a pedo in a nursery. What? Yelled Haku, why? Sasuke and Sakura looked confused. Kakashi gave his students a mysterious smile, probably, don't worry, all you need to know is that we are going to be training a lot in the next week. His sadistic smile grew, possibly. The four gulped. It was going to be one interesting week. On the way home, Sasuke turned to Naruto, hey, want to get some ramen? My treat. Naruto turned to his teammate in disbelief. The high and mighty Uchiha was inviting him to lunch. Sakura nodded, grabbing Haku by the arm, we'll see you guys later. Come on Haku. She and Haku walked off in the opposite direction. Ah, he wants something. Sakura's in on it too. You catch on fast kid. Sasuke and Naruto started walking to the Ichiraku ramen bar. Am saw the two and smiled. Hey. The prodigal son has returned. Gucci turned round and saw his favorite customer and positively beamed. Naruto. Good to have you back. How was the mission? Naruto smiled as he took his seat next to Sasuke. These were two of the first people to actually care about him, alright. San didn't have your ramen though. Gucci chuckled. Coming right up lad. Sasuke raised his hand. I'll have the same, thanks. Naruto looked at his teammate and noticed that he'd changed in the past 6 weeks. His thin body had started to bulk out and his normally dark distant eyes were warmer now, but just as alert. He also had a small scar to the left of his chin. If Sasuke had started shaving yet, you wouldn't notice it. Sasuke turned to him, seemingly also weighing him up. You've changed since you left for the sand, dunce. Sasuke noted. So have you, emo. The two laughed at the nicknames they had for each other back at the academy, both seeming incredibly useless now. Here you go. Enjoy. Naruto and Sasuke thanked Am and paid for their meal. As Sasuke began to eat, Naruto decided to ask the question, so, would you bring me here? Sasuke paused as Naruto started his meal. Basically, I wanted to fill you in and for you to do the same. Naruto looked up from his meal. Renrai Naruto began to ask, with a mouthful of food. Without the girls. Ah, it's about me then. Sasuke downed another mouthful of noodles, then asked Naruto what happened on his mission. Naruto told him, omitting some of the details. By this point, they'd finished their meals, but remained sitting. Sasuke got up, thanked Am and Tucci for the meal, and walked away. Naruto quickly thanked them as well, and rushed off after Sasuke, Tucci and Am chuckling behind him. Sasuke, what's up? Would you leave like that? Would you lie? Naruto stopped dead. What's he know? He figured out about the eye. Sasuke turned back to Naruto, sitting on a fence in the moonlight. Girl who taught you, Temari. Naruto was puzzled. Yeah. She hot. Naruto did a double take. Wait, what about Sakura? Sasuke glared at Naruto. What about Haku? Naruto froze, staring at his teammate. Oh, he's good. That kid is how shinobi uses an eye technique. Naruto silenced the Kyuubi, getting his thoughts together. Thing is, at the time, I didn't even think she cared for me more than a friend, so she kept asking about you. Sasuke looked down. She really wanted to know more about you, and in the time you've been gone, she's probably built you up to be the best guy in the world in her head. You know she's gay otherwise, right? Naruto nodded, barely believing what this guy, who before couldn't give a monkey's about him, was actually looking out for him. I know, but do you like her? Haku? Yes, and Temari? Yeah, so what are you going to do? Break up with one of them? Naruto seriously thought about what it would be like to lose either of them. Haku had already been abandoned and he really didn't want to hurt her, but he really cared for Temari and really liked her too, so he decided to stop running away and face the problem head-on, his own ninja way, and do what he felt was right. I'm gonna keep both of them. Sasuke looked shocked. And if they find out? Naruto looked straight into his teammate's eyes. I'll burn that bridge when I come to it. Sasuke sighed and, to Naruto's surprise, slapped Naruto's hand. Nice. Naruto blanked, something he'd been doing a lot lately. Sasuke seemed genuinely impressed. Guess you did have the right to say I had no balls back in the wave. Naruto shook his head. A demi-tsundere and a demi-yandere at the same time, yours must be cast iron and on fire. Naruto regained the power of speech. Wait, you're gonna be helping me on this? Sasuke laughed. Suppose I've no choice. Go on then. Anything else I should know if I need to end up disguising myself or coming up with excuses? Naruto shook his head. No, not really. You're lying. Naruto stopped, keeping a poker face. When you were gone, I developed a full two-tomo Sharingan, and I noticed that when I was concentrating on someone's face, I can see more expressions. Naruto was puzzled as the Uchiha continued. Tiny, only there for less than a second, but they didn't match up with what people were saying, so I asked Kakashi sensei about it. Sasuke scowled at the floor. He showed a flashed surprise, then sadness, and told me it was nothing. So I looked it up. Oh ho, I see where this is going. Micro-expressions occur when people are hiding something. Disgust. Sadness. Fear. Contempt. Happiness. Anger. Surprise. They're the 7 emotions my Sharingan picks up, but I can manage it without if I concentrate. Sasuke looked at Naruto, concentrating on his face. If the emotion doesn't match the words, they're lying. Just like our Hikari Haikyuu, only automatic yep, you're screwed. Naruto suppressed the Kyuubi's influence again. This, however, seemed to make things worse, as Sasuke said disgust, then blankness, you're hiding something you're not happy about. Sasuke, you're going all Neji on me. Sasuke glared at Naruto and thought bet he's suppressing the Kyuubi. I know better than to confront him about that. If he isn't, he'll never trust me again, if he is. Sasuke gulped. Naruto smiled with glee there, flash of fear and you gulped, I'm not the only liar around here. Sasuke stared at Naruto and think it was worth it kid. Not for you anyway. Naruto thought faster. I got beat up a lot when I was a kid, I had to learn to read emotions pretty well so I could get away in time. Sasuke nodded, it made sense. You're lucky you're as sane as you are psycho. Naruto sighed. Alright, fine. I de-psycho-ed Temari's brother out. I thought it was something I should keep quiet about, okay? Sasuke nodded. Okay, I'm sorry, cool. Naruto smiled. Yeah, cool. Only because you can lie so well. Sasuke turned to leave, put one hand into his pocket and the other into the air, a cool dude leaving salute, see you tomorrow. Get a decent breakfast this time. Naruto laughed, yeah, sure. Later. He knows something. Kyuubi was clearly happy about it. He's not telling though, so he probably wants you to tell him off your own back, suggesting that what he wants me to tell him about is you. Naruto sighed. I'll tell him later, when I need to. That's not the same as telling someone off your own back kid. You still haven't matured in that respect since we first met. Naruto considered silencing the Kyuubi, but realized he'd been doing that far too often lately and was playing right into Jiraiya's hand. He then had another idea. Hey, Kyuubi, what am I thinking? Right now? I have no idea. Holy crap, I have no idea. Naruto grinned. His thoughts were his again, so long as he didn't put actual words to them. You're happy about this, so you've probably just figured out a way from stopping me from reading your thoughts. Fair's fair, I can't read yours. Fair point. The two bickered like this all the way home. Haku was already asleep, passed out on the couch. She'd obviously been waiting for him. With a smile, Naruto picked her up and put her to bed. He then cleaned the mess that had been accumulated, cleared out the rotten food from the fridge, made lunches for tomorrow with what was left, got a shower, then went to bed. Thanks. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to take care of myself properly. I just wouldn't have the time. Naruto thought this as he fell asleep. The Kyuubi looked over his sleeping host and smiled. I never gave you that kid. You can thank Pops for that. 3 days later, Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke and Haku were walking through Konoha. They were on their way to get some much-needed tea after a hard day's training when a yell drew their attention. Team 7 turned and were met by a red-haired Suna Genin. Naruto smiled. Hey Gaara. How you been? Naruto asked. Sakura and Haku looked at Naruto quizzically while Sasuke just nodded. Naruto turned to his teammates and shrugged. I met Gaara and Suna, helped him with a problem, and we became friends. Gaara just nodded his greeting, a smile was across his face. His clothes looked similar to the black business suits Gato's better henchmen wore, but Naruto could tell it was different somehow. He noticed that Gaara wasn't wearing his gourd anymore, noticed the thickness of his jacket and pants, and put 2 and 2 together. Gaara also wore a dark red shirt and had leather fingerless gloves on his hands. The lighter shirt, combined with the heavier suit, showed the growth of Gaara's muscles. Naruto thought about the reasons for this change in Gaara. How's your Taijutsu coming along? You seem more suited for that now. Not bad, though I believe Temari wanted to see how your wind manipulation's coming along. Naruto and Sasuke paled. Not good. I agree kid, it is not time yet. Not time? Time for what? An evil laugh greeted him. Naruto was suddenly halfway down the street. Haku asked the inevitable question, who is Temari? My sister, she helped Naruto with his wind training, why? Before things could get any worse, Sasuke tried to defuse the ticking time bomb. That was what Haku would learn from Gaara. So, how's the Sand Village? Gaara paused at this sudden change in topic. Not bad, why? But it was too late, Haku had a grin on her face, and she gave chase. Gaara looked thoughtful, is it possible? Very much so, wait until that girl meets Temari, then the fun starts. Gaara shook his head. Shut up Shikaku, Naruto's not like that. His demon laughed. He's hosting the fox, and he's like that. You should kill him for what he's doing to your. Gaara shook his head and turned to Sasuke and Sakura, so, fancy a drink? That evening, Naruto found himself against the wall in his apartment. Haku was against him, her arms around his waist. So, who exactly is Temari then? Naruto gulped at the tone in her voice. I met her in Suna and she helped with my wind chakra training. Haku looked straight into his face. That it? Naruto nodded, once again displaying his skills as not a good liar, but an amazing one. Yeah, we're friends. Haku sighed and stepped away from Naruto. Shame she sounds interesting. Bada buing. Naruto's mind crashed. 4 days later, before the first Chunin exam, Team 7 entered the academy for the first test. You know something? This sucks. Naruto was clearly annoyed as they walked past some people from the mist trying to get into room 201, disguised as 301, distracted from their efforts, the mist ninja turned to look. What sucks? Haku asked, a smirk on her face. Sasuke and Sakura had a similar smirk. The fact that I have to do this damn exam on my own. It's hardly fair. Sasuke noted the atmosphere change at his words and decided to do some psychological warfare. I agree. If they wanted it to be fair, I'd have gotten you drunk and shoved a dozen kunai in your back, then we'd have a decent handicap. Naruto snorted. Very funny Sasuke. Jaws dropped and whispers were heard through the crowd and not just from the mist ninja on his own. How strong is he? That's Sasuke Uchiha, that genius is asking for a handicap. Who is that kid? Hey, isn't that Naruto? Asked a more familiar voice, most likely a leaf ninja. And he was the dead last from what I heard. There were other such comments, but Team 7 ignored them and proceeded to the third floor. Jiraiya and Kakashi were stood outside room 301. Hello Iro-sennin, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto was quite calm and unsurprised by the appearance of the two. Haku giggled at the name Naruto had given a member of the Sannin. Sasuke and Sakura looked at each other and laughed. Jiraiya and Kakashi smirked in unison. Yep, they're planning something evil. Hey Iro-sennin, how come you're here? The Sannin growled in annoyance. Stop calling me that. Team 7 further descended into a laughing fit and Kakashi smirked. Things have really gone well with the four of them, the Jonin thought. Things have changed amazingly in the past week. Sasuke's opened up about his brother to the rest of the team, Sakura has become less of a banshee and I have Sasuke to thank for that. Haku has settled into the team incredibly and although Naruto hasn't told his secret to the others yet, that's probably because he's been away for so long. Kakashi looked at the Sennin and his team. I reckon that will change soon enough. Naruto was shouting at Jiraiya, who was shouting back. Insults such as pervert, one-eyed gaki, old man and shorty were traded, that being the last comment. At that point, Naruto developed a twitch in his eye and made a seal. Jiraiya was found 2 hours later, unconscious, floating upside down in the women's side of hot springs, a vital part of his anatomy damaged by a solid kick. The rest of his body had also taken damage involving 12 kunai, 32 of Haku's Zenbon, 17 ninja wires, 15 explosive tags, a passing hedgehog and Kakashi's spare headband. It became an S-class Kenjutsu named the Uzumaki torture, even Marino Ibiki winced at the thought of it, it was also thought Anko had a hand in it. The damage inflicted upon the Sannin was so severe that even others suffered from the shockwave of the incredible attack. For example, Kakashi collapsed from laughing so hard, so Team 7 just left their teacher on the floor where he lay. However, Sasuke took great care to step on their teacher as they walked on to the exam room. Bit harsh Sasuke. Naruto commented. Sasuke shrugged. He tried to cut my hair. The four of them laughed their backsides off all the way to the exam office. The room was filled with genin of various ages, there was even a team that had to be at least 20. Naruto took one look around, shrugged, and took a bottle of sake out from the inside of his jacket and began to drink. People stared at him as if he had suddenly grown a second head. Then the screaming on the roof started. Team 7 could hear Jiraiya screaming, as could the rest of the genin. Some paled at the sounds, some merely shook their heads, one girl even fainted. The only distinct sentence was that really shouldn't go there, and this was accompanied by a snapping sound, and the screams became more distant. Sasuke looked out the window and winced. That was a good shot Naruto, the Uchiha noted, I think Anko is there around this time. Naruto grinned. Oh yeah, and took another swig of sake. Kiba walked up to Naruto and slapped his raised hand that, my good friend, was freaking immense. Hinata and Shino followed their teammate. Hinata just blushed upon sight of Naruto, Shino was just Shino. That's right, I really should talk to her soon, I'm at my wit's end dealing with 2 women as is, I doubt I could handle Hinata as well. There was a blurry voice in the back of Naruto's head. I saw you set it up and I don't know how you did it. You're already drunk. Wow, I'm still recovering from the 72 bottles last night Ah, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke sighed as he was glumped from the behind. He didn't move, he only replied hello Haku. Sasuke. What? I'm right here. Haku waved while standing next to Naruto, opposite Sasuke. Eh? This was a shocker for Sasuke. Then. That off him Ino pig. He's not yours. Ino stuck her tongue out at Sakura while holding Sasuke tighter. Yes, he is. Ino looked mortified. Sasuke-kun. Say it isn't so. Sasuke leaned his head back so he could face her. Actually, yeah. I'm taken, have been for the last 6 weeks, I told everyone. Naruto's free if you're interested. Ino was thrown forward as Naruto punched Sasuke in the gut. However, Sasuke disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Damn Naruto, you could have taken me out there. Naruto's anger turned to astonishment. When did you learn how to do that? Sasuke smiled. Shadow clones. Easy. Ino and Sakura were even more impressed than Naruto. I copied your little trick though. Never would have thought that it was as simple. Naruto quickly shut him up, but he disappeared again. Fine, I'll keep quiet about it, just remember I don't have your chakra. Sasuke was eating an energy bar. Unlike you, I can't do it endlessly yet. Ino was shocked, why would Sasuke copy from a dunce like Naruto? Because idiots are inventive. Shikamaru and Choji came to join their classmates. Shikamaru continued. Last place knew more than he let on, but it didn't help him much, did it? Man, Naruto-kun has always been as strong. No, it's just that all the teachers had it in for him. Kiba finished her sentence for her. Iruka was alright, and it wasn't that bad. Yeah, it was, Naruto thought, but Iruka-sensei did try at least. He didn't hate you. Shikamaru corrected. He still said you were a failure. The other teachers did seem to harbor a prejudice against Naruto. Shino noted. Yeah, you got into trouble way more than me and Shino put together. Choji added, temporarily leaving his snack to join the conversation. Maybe even if you threw in Kiba you'd outrank us. Choji returned to his chips. Told you it was temporary. Only to be expected from the joint Sannin of pranks and failure of the year. See, come on guys. Naruto tried to fix his cover. Haku was looking suspicious. It's not like they had a vendetta against me or anything. Sasuke caught his lie. Here he began, but he paused to dodge Naruto's kick. Remembering his promise to help Naruto, Sasuke redirected his sentence. Dead. The two fought for almost a minute before Shikamaru interrupted it. Troublesome. The reason that the lazy genin said this was because Gaara, Temari and Kankuro came over. You're telling me, was Naruto's reply, withdrawing his fist from Sasuke's face. Gaara, like before, was wearing a padded suit. His headband had been converted into a tie serving no purpose other than looking rather badass. Like Naruto, he had a bottle of sake in his hand. He lifted the bottle to emphasize it, really makes it easier. Doesn't it just? Replied Naruto, as everyone else stared in confusion. Temari looked at Naruto, blushing slightly. Naruto, thinking of the night before he left Suna, blushed as well. Temari then looked at the rest of Team 7 and blushed slightly upon sight of Haku. Temari simply nodded to her at this. Sasuke winced a smile, as if a friend had just done something very painful and funny. Naruto, however, hid his outrage. You didn't. Foresight is a beautiful thing. Naruto drank more sake, she's gonna figure it out. And I won't stop her if she ever gets her hands on you. How's she gonna do that then? Temari's smart. She'd work something out. That's fine. I'll just tell her you got me drunk and told me to do it. Naruto sighed. This is going to be a long day. Sasuke leaned over to Naruto, whispering, this is going to be interesting. Naruto nodded and drank some more. Temari and Haku were deep in conversation. Probably just girl talk. Except Sakura, Ino and Hinata aren't invited. And Haku looks like a dude with her hair like that. And Temari started talking to her right after Kyuubi's arousal jutsu affected her with Haku. And it's definitely girl talk. And Temari knows that she isn't attracted to women. But she does know that Kyuubi has that arousal jutsu and likes to see others suffer. And Temari is good at putting 2 and 2 together. The two girls in question turned to Naruto, Temari glaring and Haku grinning. Fuck, I am either very lucky or very dead, door number 1 please. Oh yeah, I'm proud of you kid. How did you know it'd end up with Haku as well? Advin said physics. Before Naruto could reply, a yell came across the room, shut up and come here for seating. It was a yell that was used to giving orders and having them obeyed. Several Chunin examiners were stood at the front of the room, led by one man Naruto never wanted to see again. That one time he had been beaten by Anbu for nicking this guy's teddy bear. Morino Ibiki. The interrogation officer spotted Naruto and grinned. Ah, so the infamous Sannin of the pranks is here. Naruto took another drink of sake. Perhaps I won't be bored out of my skull today after all. People looked between him and Naruto curiously as a murmur began throughout the room. Naruto gulped, why him? Anyone but him. Kyuubi was mercifully silent, likely because he was dead drunk. The exam was indeed fun. For starters, Haku was sat one side of Naruto and Temari the other, but also a Chunin found himself short of his clipboard once the genin filed into the exam room. It never was found, probably because Naruto had it. Holding it under the table, Naruto read it as Ibiki explained the so-called rules of the exam. Naruto, having learned about his love for mind games long ago, ignored him and studied the clipboard. The exam was a dud. 9 out of the 10 questions were impossible for a genin to answer, and the 10th was a secret. The chart had the seating arrangements of the examinees, but there were 3 blank seats on the chart. Looking around, Naruto saw that they were occupied by Leaf Ninja, most likely Confederates. Naruto frowned. This meant that they were getting marked on how well they cheated, the exam was a lie. Sighing, Naruto looked at his exam as he slipped a leaf into his mouth and began to chew. Huh? What? Naruto smiled. The old man knew his stuff. The leaf had a chemical that made you sweat out the alcohol in your bloodstream. He'd stink of sake, but he already did, so it was cool. Hey, I need your help. Doing what? Naruto smiled. Doing what I do best. Raising hell. Begin. Oh yeah. Throughout the exam, hell was raised. In tiny, precise peaks, lifted carefully to make it impossible to determine who was doing it. The female sound nin found her bra on top of Ibiki's head and no one could figure out how the awkward situation came to pass. Akamaru found himself sat on Shikamaru minus his dog collar, which had been modified and put over Chaoji's mouth, and no one ever saw a thing. The collar took half an hour to remove. Even though she only jumped slightly, Haku was given a wedgie, she was wearing his boxers again. Niji gained a paper crown and Shino inexplicably gained an octopus mask but gave no reaction as he continued the exam. Even Naruto got an egg rammed into his face. When Ibiki asked if they were ready for the 10th question, he explained the rules and took off his headband. Well, this was all very intimidating. Naruto had to suppress the urge to say been there, done that, got the tiny little scar up my backside. Half the room fled, leaving the Konoha 13, the original 12 and Haku, Gaara, Temari, Kankuro, as well as a few teams from Iwa, one from Rain, one from Grass and one from Odo, plus a few others from Konoha as well. No one else leaving then, very we. It was at this point that a banner flew through the window and was pinned to the roof and floor by kunai. However, no one was able to read the banner as it was instantly covered in spray paint displaying the words, "Sucks to be you." The kunoichi that came through the window was upset to say the least. When she saw Naruto she grinned, quite sadistically, this is going to be fun. Ibiki picked Naruto's exam paper. He looked at the paper, interested in how the boy did. It was obvious that boy had pulled all those pranks, a lesser ninja would have been fooled when Naruto egged himself, but it was obvious that no one else had the balls or imagination to pull that off. His scarred jaw dropped as he saw what was written on the paper. Every question was correct. Not copied, that was clear. Each answer was in the boy's own words, his distinct sense of humor was evident in his answers. The paper showed his working out and the fact that the boy missed out keywords only helped prove the authenticity of his answers. He noticed a note just beneath the 10th question. PTO. Ibiki turned over the exam paper and his eye twitched. The boy had made a very detailed drawing of a right hand, covering almost the entire A4 page, its middle finger pointed straight at his face. The word owned was drawn on the back of the hand like a tattoo, and despite the insolence it showed, the detail of the sketch would have taken an artist the better part of an hour. So how the hell have time to do the exam and the pranks as well as the drawing? Ibiki sensed that he had just met a truly amazing ninja. At night, Naruto stood in the shower in his apartment, his demon eye was uncovered. This next one is going to be tough. He thought about what Anko had said. After Anko had taken the remaining teams from the first exam room, she had given the teams a meeting place and time for the morning so she could take them to the second exam location. She told them what equipment they would need and the list said no food and cheating teams would be disqualified. Survival test then. Naruto thought when he heard this. Hope I recognize the plants there. Naruto then heard a sound which pulled him out of his memory. Not good. Someone had dropped something on the floor and Naruto was pretty sure he knew who. He closed his right eye and sighed, bracing himself for the impact. He wasn't disappointed as someone had joined him in the shower and said person was also hugging him from behind. His face went red as he felt that person's push against his back. Hello Haku. Frustration laced Naruto's words. He felt a chill down his spine despite the hot water, not good at all. Oh, what's wrong? You should Haku giggled. At this point Kityu turned around, pushed her into the wall, and Kyub trailed away as Naruto tuned him out. He then realized his big mistake. Whilst he wasn't paying attention, Haku had slid around and had him by the waist. She was looking at him with a grin, and Naruto's nose had a small trickle of blood. His right eye was still closed. His left eye, however, was very open. You know, you can see better with two eyes. Haku pointed out. Come on, open up. No. He replied, desperately trying not to look down. Even though he said that, he did nothing as she moved her hand up to his eye. Her hand hovered just in front of the eye, uncertainty in hers. Naruto sighed in defeat and opened his eye. Haku's hand dropped to her side, jaw dropping, and a scream he thought was cute, if not terrified. Naruto sighed and stepped out of the shower, wrapping a towel around his waist. If she's like that about the eye, how'll she react to Kyub? Naruto opened the door and stepped into the hallway as his train of thought continued, and for that matter, how will everyone else? He was interrupted as he felt a hand grab his shoulder and spin him around before Haku kissed him, pushing him to the floor. Well, this worked out alright. Even after Haku had released him she kept hugging him. Thanks Naruto. Naruto just lay underneath her. Wait, she grateful. Made sense actually, even Kakashi was shocked to first see his eye, but Naruto had actually let her in there. Even Temari forced it out of him. This brought forward another question, when do I tell them all? Oh. Haku derailed his train of thought. Naruto's a pervert. She said, reaching down for his towel. Panicking, Naruto disappeared in a cloud of smoke and Haku fell a couple of inches onto the floor. Hey, no fair. Neither is surprise shower buddies. Naruto, plus pants, was walked out of his room pulling a shirt on. I'm gonna get ready for tomorrow, he continued, want me to pack for you while you shower. Mist was coming out of the bathroom as Haku stood up, unashamed. Yeah, I guess. She turned back into the bathroom and looked back at the blonde. Nice belly tattoo by the way. She said, closing the door behind her. Naruto paled as the demon laughed. You're good kid, Kaiba noted between the laughter, but you're not that good yet. Meanwhile, thousands of meters away in the Konoha guest barracks, Gaara was having a panic attack. This can't be happening, this can't be happening, this can't be happening. Well it is, so live with it. Shoot up. Not good. Temari and Kankuro were helpless to help their brother. Is he talking to it? Probably, Temari answered her younger brother. We have no idea what Naruto taught him apart from taijutsu and human emotion. Kankuro sighed, well, at least he's resisting it. He fell back onto his bed. But man, that was a shocker. His sister nodded. He told me back home, she said, but I didn't believe it. I saw how the other Konoha were treating him. I mean, come on. Kankuro flipped forward. He completely schooled the full-on demonic Gaara, he mastered wind jutsu in a couple of weeks, he's got the Kage Bunshin trick, he's a decent fighter, immense chakra, he's the Jinchuriki to the strongest of the tailed demons, he's only got one eye, he missed Temari's flash of guilt, and he's ranked last place, how the hell? It's not possible. Naruto's strong, damn it. Gaara seemed to be getting worse, and Kankuro was starting to join him. Sighing, Temari picked up her fan and swung it. The wind threw her two brothers across the room and they were stunned into silence. Glaring at her younger siblings, Temari set things straight. So what if he's last place? There could be any number of reasons. Temari sat down on one of the beds while the two brothers shifted into a cross-legged position, like students in front of a teacher. Actually, they called him the Sannin of pranks, right? Kankuro noted, so he could have just spent all of his energy doing that instead. Yeah, Gaara nodded, that fits. No, it doesn't. Temari shook her head. Naruto's not like that. She pieced together what she knew about him, from his own account, the way others treat him, and from a very informative Haku. Temari frowned, but that could wait. Combined with her experience with Gaara, she came up with a theory. Naruto's an orphan. On top of that, no one knows anything about his birth, except he was born when the nine-tailed fox attacked the village, and that the Yondaime died sealing it into him. But no one told him until he was 12. There's a law here forbidding the discussion of it to anyone, unless Naruto initiates the topic specifically. Because of that, parents probably just told their kids to stay away from him. She paused, her frown furrowing deeper. On top of that, the adults treated him like dirt. Gaara was treated okay since he was the Kazukiya's son, then gained fear as he began to kill. Gaara nodded at this as his sister continued, but Naruto was just the orphan, no, the demon fox whose existence they had to tolerate, so they mostly ignored him or abused him. Naruto couldn't understand why no one liked him, so since he couldn't get affection, he settled for attention. Like how I settled for fear. Temari nodded. Yeah, Naruto was just like you, but he found another outlet. But if you combine the fact that the entire village hated him with the fact that he was also a prankster, it's no wonder if the teachers never actually helped him with a basic academy. In fact, Temari's frown turned to sadness. It's no surprise if the teachers sabotaged his growth. And if the Kyuubi was his main teacher, he probably has the demon's power in case he got caught, so the only ones that know he's any good are us and his team. After a few moments, Kankuro stood up. Actually, that makes sense. His starting form looked forced, as if he'd only just learned it recently, most of his fighting was sloppy and wild, as if he'd learned it in schoolyard brawls. He then leaned against a wall, head tilted to one side. Actually, he didn't even seem to know most basic jutsu. Every village has their own jutsu, Kankuro. Yeah, but every genin can create illusionary clones. Not Naruto. Kankuro smiled. Only cloning he can do is a high-level Kage Bunshin he taught himself. It's not that he doesn't use low-level techniques, he actually can't use low-level techniques. Just like you. Gaara stood up, sighing. He reached into the fridge for some alcohol. Another one? Temari asked. It's no good for you, you know. Pass us a cold one. Gaara tossed a can to his older brother, emerging from the fridge with his own. Opening it, he simply remarked, it shuts up Shukaku. Ouchie. The next day, outside the Forest of Death, Anko was grinning like a madman, woman. For example, she just flashed Team 7 a few seconds ago. Well, half of it, Sasuke and Sakura were looking away, no prizes for guessing where their attention was. Naruto should have been stunned, but for some reason he was only mildly shocked. Am I getting desensitized? Doubt it, seen better. Haku, on the other hand, had a nosebleed. Anko took the chance to cop a feel. Yup, female. Thought so, but it's not so easy to tell, that is one really baggy top. She whispered something into Haku's ear, who blushed before whispering back. Anko walked away with a smirk Naruto did not like. After the signing of forms, the removal of some of Naruto's blood, one really long tongue, the distribution of scrolls and the splitting of teams, the gates opened and the other teams rushed in. Naruto felt someone slip something into his pocket. It was a small scroll. Naruto read it, laughed, and walked into the Forest of Death alone. In the Forest of Death but the Suna team. Once they had cleared some distance into the forest, Temari veered off to the right and made hand signs over her shoulder, indicating this way. Gaara and Kankuro just shrugged and followed. But Team 7, Sasuke led Haku and Sakura about a mile into the forest before Haku stopped the team. She explained the plan to them, and they both grinned. About an hour later, Team 7 and the Sand siblings had found each other and were waiting for Naruto to show up. After it was confirmed that both teams had the Heaven Scroll, they all agreed to the alliance that had been set up. Eventually, Sasuke felt his hair get scuffle. Naruto, why are you on my head? Naruto handed him a piece of paper. Check it out. Naruto meet us on Sasuke's head. Haku and Temari. Sasuke read what was written and sighed, sometimes I just don't get women. Naruto sidestepped as Sasuke was punched into a tree by Sakura, who looked for Naruto. Reaching above her head, she grabbed Naruto's ankle and smashed him into the ground. Ow. Naruto got up, dusted himself and handed Gaara the note. Kankuro read the note over his brother's shoulder, and they both laughed. Sasuke got up and explained to Sakura what the note contained, her now being the only one now out of the loop. Sakura glared at Haku and Temari, who grinned. Honestly, she said, picking the twigs and dirt out of Sasuke's hair. Naruto looked around the group. All seemed right in the world. Naruto looked behind him and saw half a dozen senbon in his back. As the world grew dark, he saw Temari approach him, pure murder on her face. Sucks to be me, he thought, as he lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Temari picked up the unconscious ninja and hoisted him over his shoulder. She faced the other 4 genin and simply said excuse us as she walked into the trees with Haku. After a moment, Sakura asked the important question. What the hell? I thought she liked him. I know. Sasuke sighed, deciding that Naruto was in large pile of crap, so coming clean now would minimize his pile later. That's the problem. Gaara was confused. I thought Naruto and Temari were dating. Eh? Sakura was stunned. I thought he was going out with Haku. There was silence for a moment and then Sasuke simply said. You're both right. Then they found out. I warned him this would happen, but he was all like no, I like them both. You gotta hand it to him, he's got balls. Wait, what? Kankuro was outraged. I'll kill him. Sasuke shrugged. Looks like your sister beat you to it. Man, this sucks. Actually, this is pretty awesome. Naruto looked around, finding himself back in the Kyuubi's lair. He punched him. Ow. Hey. Shut up. This is your fault. And how? You just had to use the arousal jutsu to make Temari attracted to Haku, didn't you? Didn't you realize that she'd put 2 and 2 together and figure out that you were screwing with her again? Yep. Then why? You'll see as the world turned black again. Yeah, I think we might have overdone it, Temari. It's called irony. He invented it. Uzumaki torture uses a hedgehog Temari, not a flying pirate sickle weasel thing. What is that anyway? Amatari, summon jutsu. That's even worse. You could have killed him. Temari shook her head. He'd be fine. He heals fast, remember? Haku was surprised at this, really? Why? Now it was Temari's turn. You don't know. Haku shook her head. Something to do with his eye. Before she could respond, Naruto did. Oh look, the lying, cheating scumbags awake. In my defense, I didn't lie about this. Haku kicked him in the chest. But you admit that you are a liar. I'm a ninja, of course I lie. But self-perseveration told him to keep his mouth shut. Wise move, Kit. Shut up. Temari leaned against a tree. Well. Aren't you going to explain yourself? And don't you dare blame your little friend. Naruto blanked for a moment, desperately grasping for an excuse. 12 years of excuses and he had none. Then he realized something. She used guarded language. He thought. She's keeping quiet about Kyub, so I can still save my ass. It's the how that's important, Kit. How are you going to save your ass? Naruto didn't even bother blocking out the fox. Or excusing himself. First off, both of you came on to me. Yeah, I didn't say no, come on. I'm 12 years old. You expect me to be able to say no? He has got a point. Haku noted as Temari almost shocked. 12. Naruto blinked. Yeah. Temari regained control of herself. Fine then, but why all the secrets? Why not just come forward and say so in the first place? You didn't even ask if we were okay with you dating us both. Sorry, but wait, what? For the record, Haku put in, I am. Wait, what? It worked, oh yeah. Aku simply looked smug and Temari smiled. Naruto got the hint. Are you? Temari shrugged. Go on then. Aku jumped into the air. Yay. Threesome. The sound rocked through the forest. Yay. Threesome. Then Ten almost tripped over the unconscious rain ninja. What? Niji shrugged. Some people have no priorities. What are you talking about, Niji-kun? Rock Lee struck a pose. It is simple, the power of say youth and I'll kick your ass. Rock Lee, shut up. Yay. Threesome. Team 10 paused. They were trailing some weaker looking ninja. Shikamaru shook his head and Ino sighed. Ah, me, Sasuke-kun and Sakura, that'd be nice. Taoji choked on the crisp he was eating, wiping the blood from his nose. Shikamaru grunted. Who in their right minds would try to deal with 2 women at once? Too troublesome. Yay. Threesome. The grass nin heard this and smiled. He began to rush through the forest in that direction. Yay. Threesome. Sasuke's, Sakura's and Kankuro's jaws dropped simultaneously. How the hell had he managed to pull it off? Gaara smiled. Hey, Naruto's got balls. Sasuke shook his head. Made from cast iron. Yay. Threesome. No. Aw, come on, Tems. Temari was taken aback. Did you just call me Tems? Aku shrugged. We're sharing the same man now, aren't we? That practically makes us sisters or something. Temari sighed. Fine, whatever. Come on, we should get moving. You probably told half the forest where we were with that. Aku flinched as Temari cut Naruto loose. Sorry about that. That's not all, actually. Temari looked concerned as she got to work fixing the damage. I think you broke him. Sure enough, Naruto looked like his brain just broke. He had a double-barrel nosebleed, but that was only to be expected after what he just imagined. Actually, Temari was more worried about what the Kyuubi had imagined and shown him, which was probably what made him go into shock. Temari sighed, he really is just a kid, all thanks to me. Shut up, Kyuubi, you had no idea this was going to happen. Either way, now you have your very own. I'm leaving now. I'm on a mission, remember? Several hours later, thanks to Naruto's tracking skills and Gaara's sand, the 7 genin quickly obtained 2 Earth Scrolls, meaning that all they needed was a Heaven Scroll for Naruto. That's when things went downhill, as a giant snake dived out from the canopy as the group dashed across the tree branches. Naruto suddenly found himself on the forest floor, staring into the eyes of a giant snake. This can't be good. Naruto found himself staring into the eyes of the giant snake, crushing the lower half of his body. I hate snakes. Then close your eyes, maybe you won't notice it. Naruto rolled his eye as his hand came up and moved the headband, revealing his demon eye. The serpent shuddered and vanished in a cloud of smoke. Naruto quickly replaced his headband. That one's useful. Comes with being the leader of the Fox clan and the king of the tailed beasts. All but the strongest of summons can be dispelled by me, or you. Nice. The sound of battle came from the treetops and something wet and warm dropped onto Naruto's lap. Pulling himself up, he found it was half of a lung. Grabbing it, it felt gritty in Naruto's hands as blood rained down in the forest and other body parts fell to the floor. Gaara must be having fun. I prefer fire mice. The Kyuubi stopped mid-sentence. What's wrong? There's a Sannin level ninja nearby. He'd be troublesome even for me. Is he a threat? Wouldn't have brought it up if he wasn't Kit. Orochimaru, you know about him. Wasn't he Iro-sensei's old teammate who left the leaf and founded the Sound? That's the one. He's headed for your girlfriend's, up there. Naruto was up and jumping into the treetops. Well, this is fun. Sasuke was grinning like a mad clown, which faded as a sand spike missed his face by an inch. Okay, no time for jokes, I get it. The battle was fierce, ninja wearing Odo headbands had the group of leaf and sand nin surrounded and they kept on the attack. Every time one of the Odo died, another replaced him. Naruto dashed to the edge of the battle. I can't smell them, I can't even hear them, I can. It's an incredible genjutsu, which is probably why I noticed it. Someone's playing a song that's messing with your senses, Kit. Anything we can do? Kill them all. Me too. Aku stood and watched as her boyfriend showed a power she had never seen before. Naruto dove into the fight, black flames shooting out of his palm, incinerating most of the Odo nin to ashes. He then drew Kitsune and destroyed over 20 trees with a single slash, alongside the remaining Sound ninja. Temari looked at Haku as she watched in awe. She might need some new pants, Temari thought, noticing the light stain appear amongst the darkness of the blood, but if she does that from watching him kick ass, then what happens? And Temari let out a perverted giggle. Everyone looked at her, Gaara raising an eyebrow. Temari blushed and gave a small shrug. Honestly, Naruto turned to face the rest of the group. I leave for 5 minutes and the team had set up camp a mile away from where the Odo nin had ambushed them. Naruto looked thoughtful and then spoke. I guess we kind of need a war. Naruto suddenly collapsed, blood seeping from that eye. Temari and Haku both caught him. What the hell? Haku was in near hysterics, what happened to him? He's fine, just exhausted. Gaara's voice cut across the camp. That black flame was 3 separate hells of a move. Temari moved Naruto over to the side of the camp before taking his headband off. Sasuke and Sakura tried to get a look at his eye, they were stopped by Sand approaching them menacingly. He'll tell you when he's ready. As far as I'm aware only a few have seen it. I fought him when he uncovered his eye and it is not an experience I wish to repeat. Haku and Sakura both stared at Gaara while Sasuke only showed mild surprise. He fought you? Gaara nodded, at my full strength, I think he only showed a fraction of his power. Stares widened and Sasuke nodded. So which one do you have? Gaara's jaw dropped, how did you? Your control over Sand. Gaara gave a small chuckle. Conversation stopped at the next sentence. My head hurts again. Naruto was awake and clutching his head. Haku tackled him and wrapped her arms around him. Temari just took some medication out and rammed it down his throat, that's for making everyone else worry. Tears streamed out of Naruto's left eye as he began choking. Temari rolled him and Haku over and slapped him on his back. He swallows and sighed, not nice Tem-chan. At Temari's look Haku began to giggle. Temari glared at Haku, who pushed Naruto off her and sat next to Temari, looking in at the camp. Don't you even dare. Spoil sport. Haku pouted. That's enough you two. Naruto stood up and turned towards Temari and Haku, away from everyone else. They both glared at him, he put his hands up defensively, I just don't want you two fighting. Naruto turned to the others, looking for a way out. So, Sasuke, what's up? Sakura looked horrified, while Sasuke just smirked. No wonder you keep that hidden. Naruto looked confused until his hand rose to his right eye. A look of realization showed on his face. Not good. Haku spoke up, I think it's kinda cute. You would, Temari noted. Haku giggled, Naruto sighed, troublesome. Everyone laughed while Naruto stood and retrieved his headband from Temari in a huff. When we get to the tower I'll tell you all everything. He repositioned it between his right eye and his Konoha headband. Well I'm at it, I might as well tell you everything. Everyone looked at him curiously, so he elaborated, how I got it, what's the deal with it, why my parents are dead, why the whole village hates me, and why the hell Sasuke's so suspicious of me. Finally, Sasuke replies, standing up, I want to know whether I won my million ryo or not. Then Kuro looked up, you made a bet with someone about this? Sasuke looked offended by the idea. You never seen Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The middle Sand sibling smiled. They got that show in the Suna too. What's option A? Sasuke smirked. I picked C, but A is that Naruto's an asshole. Temari stood up. You just won a million ryo. That got everyone laughing. Naruto stuck his tongue out at her and pulled his left eyelid down. This just got even more interesting. There's one upside. What? After explaining the side effects, your girls won't let you leave that tower. Stop being a pervert. You get some action and I won't need to. Naruto stared up at the sky. He was lying on his back on the tower's rooftop. He'd taken off his headband and stared at the sky with both eyes visible. Temari and Haku were either side of him, asleep. He had an arm around each of them. It had taken almost 2 days for them to retrieve the needed scrolls and get to the tower. They'd arrived 6 hours earlier and he had told them everything after the medical exam. Well, almost everything. He left out a name, sort of, he wasn't sure, he had forgotten to ask, was it Yukikashi-sensei? Flashback 5 hours ago, the group were sat around Naruto, filling Naruto's room in the tower. They had arrived an hour earlier and had rested before meeting up. Everyone looked at Naruto expectantly, who sighed, you guys all know what happened the day I was born, right? Sakura came out with the answer Naruto wanted. The Yondaime killed the Kyuubi, right? For effect, of course. Wrong. But that's what they told us in the academy. Sakura frowned at Naruto, like it was his fault. That's the story the third gave them, the older generation know the truth. Hence the hate the council and the other adults have for you. Sasuke's voice held no trace of confusion. Haku looked shocked and Sakura, confused. Naruto nodded, you've caught on. Sakura, he asked, do you know how to kill a tailed beast? Sakura shrugged, no. You can't, Naruto explained, you can seal it, but you can't kill it. Sakura's eyes went wide as realization hit, he sealed it inside of you. Yup, that's why I lived on the streets from when I was 2 years old to when I was 7. I don't remember much from back then, though one person can tell you. Who? The question was asked by everyone but Gaara. Shikamaru. Even Sasuke was surprised at this, wow. When I was 8 I was nearly cut in half by a drunken Anbu who was killed by another Anbu with a dog mask. Who I don't actually know who that was, but Kakashi-sensei does. Anyway, that's when I was first contacted by Kyuubi. Who? Everyone looked confused. Kyuubi. Naruto explained, it's my nickname for the Kyuubi. He calls me Kid. Everyone looked confused but they understood. I got the eye when I was 12, after I failed the Genin exams. Kyuubi trained me in between. Gaara spoke up, so what other effect did it have on you? Naruto smirked, since I was 8 my body began aging at double the rate. Thankfully, I noticed last year and we got that fixed. We also control my height, which can be what it should be when I want, somewhere near 6 foot. Temari did the math. So, physiologically you're 15 to 16. Naruto nodded. Brain aged as well, so that changed how I think as well. Two people in the room began thinking perversely simultaneously. One demon was doing this the whole time. Then flashback, Orochimaru is still hanging around and from what I can sense, he is very annoyed. What does he want? We need more information before we begin theorizing. Wow, you can use big words. Shut up you little son of a. Naruto was aware of a person approaching, though he didn't bother to hide his eye. He recognized the chakra signature. Your friends are so troublesome. Naruto sat and turned to the speaker. What's up Shikamaru? Shikamaru sat near to Naruto. A while ago I was ambushed by Sakura and Sasuke, interrogating me about how I knew more of your past than you did. Naruto nodded. What did you tell them? Shikamaru looked down. Just that I found you in an alleyway when you were 3 and that I helped you when you needed it and still do. Thanks. Shikamaru nodded. How's our friend? Shouting rude words at the minute. Shikamaru gave a small laugh. See Temari likes you as well. Yeah, having 2 girlfriends is going to be troublesome. Yup. The two fell silent for a while. You finished that technique you were working on yet? Naruto broke the silence. Yeah, I might use it in the finals. So, are we both going to go all out? Troublesome. I'll take that as a yes then. Shikamaru looked at Naruto. How do you feel about them? Naruto looked at the sky for a moment, a contemplative look on his face before he replied, if something happened to either of them, I don't know what I'd do. He took a deep breath. I've not known either of them for that long, yet Naruto trailed off looking at the sky. Shikamaru gave a chuckle. You never were good with your emotions were you? Naruto gave a small laugh, the positive ones anyway. Shikamaru looked at the stars for a few moments before he left. What do I feel for them? Temari only started liking me because of Kyuubi and Haku because I showed her some kindness, yet they both became so close to me. Kyuubi remained silent. Naruto fell asleep with the same thoughts going around in his head. Naruto awoke cursing the sunlight that hit his eyes. He could feel something was missing, but he struggled to work out anything with a brain that wasn't working yet. It feels colder than when I went to sleep, my head feels wrong. He struggled to open his eyes and it hit him like a bucket of water. Which also hit him like a bucket of water. So. Cold, wet, and no Temari or Haku. Troublesome. Bad kid, no turning into Shikamaru now. That would indeed be bad. Two people stood over Naruto, he could make out the blurry outlines. The one on the right was clearer than the left one. He blinked rapidly and Jiraiya and Kakashi came into focus. Jiraiya stood at his right seemed to be in better focus than Kakashi on his left. I wonder why. Boy. Gaki. You awake. The sentence was followed by a kick to his right side from Jiraiya and a giggle from Kakashi, who had his book in hand. Naruto sighed and sat up, whatever gave you that idea? The two giggled and sat down either side of him. Kakashi spoke now about those 2 girlfriends of yours. Naruto groaned and pulled out a bottle of sake from his jacket. Jiraiya's eyes went wide, how much of that stuff do you have in there? Naruto gave a chuckle, one more than limitless. Jiraiya was stumped so Kakashi cut in about the conversation with Shikamaru last night. Naruto had a faraway look in both eyes which bit. Kakashi paused for a moment about your feelings for Haku and the Suna girl. Naruto looked up at the sky, it's something I've never felt before. He paused if anything happened to them I feel like I'd die, but Naruto sighed. I can't understand it. Jiraiya had a gleam in his eyes, this is good. Naruto looked up at the grinning sage. You've fallen for them. Naruto, the one-eyed enigma, in love with the girl he brought back from a monster and the girl from a faraway land. He gave a perverted giggle and took out his notebook. Naruto closed his eyes, letting out a long sigh, love you really think? Kakashi put a hand on Naruto's shoulder, without a doubt, you've fallen in love with both of them, they've fallen for you. He leaned towards his pupil's ear. Also, try to read the signs between them, it might give you a greater insight. Naruto nodded, thanks, that helped a lot. He paused for a moment, his hand going to his head. Where's my headband and forehead protector? Jiraiya smirked, ask your girlfriends. The next day, Naruto felt awful. He didn't get any sleep last night and he had a hangover. It's your own fault damn it. The chance was there and you walked away. The council would have just spun it against me somehow. You say that, but we both know you just have no balls. Shut up. Naruto reached for a bottle of sake that wasn't there. Damn it, I drank that much. Naruto struggled to listen to the Proctor Hate's orders, but it was hard enough to just stand. In fact, it was. The only reason he was still vertical was because Shikamaru noticed and got him in a shadow jutsu. All Naruto knew was that he had to beat his opponent. Easy enough. Alright, our first contestants are Shino and Zaku. Everyone else to the stands. Everyone except the bug user, the sound ninja, and Naruto left the arena. Naruto. Wah. Oh, right. Naruto trudged towards the stairs and climbed up, sitting against the walls once he reached the top. Naruto, Temari asked. You okay? Snore. Presumably Haku answered. Hey, fight. The two ninjas faced each other. The sound ninja shifted into a stance, legs braced and palms facing Shino. There was a small hole in each hand. You ready? Shino, however, just stood there with his hands in his pockets. This match had been decided. I would advise you to forfeit. What? Zaku laughed. You got some nerve. Check this out. Thunder sound blast. A shockwave blasted out of his hand, knocking Shino flying. Shino-kun. Cried Hinata. Zaku grinned. However, the smile faded as Shino stood up unfazed. The intelligent thing to do now, Shino told him, would be to surrender, as you're surrounded. I only see you, buddy. Zaku told him as a bug landed on his forearm. Jareth. He said, but stopped as he noticed a cloud of insects surrounding him. What? Like I said. Surrender or perish. Snarling, Zaku crossed his arms and started building up chakra. Sonic boom. There was an explosion and a spattering of blood. Garg. I did warn you. Shino said monotonously. Zaku's sound pipes in his arms were blocked by Shino's insects, so the built-up pressure exploded his arms. Unfortunately, the explosion was near his chest, so as the smoke cleared, you could see wide amongst the red, shards of ribsage poked through the sides of the cavity that used to be his chest. One lung was torn, another almost completely destroyed, but they preserved his heart, which still was not visible and still beating strongly. Pumping blood into the hole that used to be his chest. Wise is that Zaku was still conscious. Ho holy shh, he fainted. The winner is Shino. Hayate declared as sickened murmurs filled the room. Medics, get him out of here. Medic Nins rushed the sound Nin onto a stretcher as Shino walked away. Alright, the next match as Hayate looked at the computer screen. Sasuke Uchiha and Yoroi Akato. Nice. Sasuke jumped onto the bloodstained floor, grinning. Yoroi, on the other hand, walked leisurely onto the arena. Amazing, I didn't even have to beg to fight you. Sorry, but you're in the way of the people I really want to fight. Cough. Begin. Sasuke charged forward, dodging past the kunai and shuriken, Sharingan spinning. Fire covered his fist as he prepared to strike, but the Uchiha was caught in the face by Yoroi, and the fire died. This is my chakra absorption jutsu, the Leaf Nin said. You like it? Sasuke didn't get chance to answer, however, as he vanished in a puff of smoke. What? Shadow clone Yoroi spun around. Then he's. Hands grabbed his face from behind. Thanks for that skill. Sasuke whispered from behind. Payback's a bitch, isn't it? Yoroi didn't get chance to answer, however, as he slumped to the ground, unconscious. Winner, Sasuke. Damn man. Gaara slapped Sasuke's high five as he returned to the top. That was skill. Thanks. Smiled the Uchiha, slipping Sakura a quick kiss on the cheek, hugging her. He was disappointed, however, that Naruto was asleep through the whole thing. I saw it if it makes you feel better. Sasuke stopped with a start. The hell. You're better conversation than kid over here, so I'll bore you for now, Uchiha. Okay then. Good. So who we cheering for? Shikamaru and a sound nin named Kin had entered the arena. Shikamaru sighed. Well, this is troublesome, you don't say. No, it's just normally I hold them down while Chaoji beats them up or Ino mind rapes them. Ooh, I know that kid. 100 Ryo on him. You don't have 100 Ryo, do you? Sasuke honestly didn't know what to expect, nor was he used to this sensation. Does Naruto feel like this all the time? Probably. And Kid does. I guess that it can't be helped. Shikamaru crouched down, placing his fingers together in a circle. I was hoping to save this for Naruto, but since he's asleep right now, I reckon that I'll be alright. Ha! Bring it on. The temperature in the room fell as the shadows gathered around Shikamaru. The shadows crawled into his hands, coiling to form an unearthly black ball of darkness that slowly span and span until it made a perfect sphere. Then it opened an eye. A twisted wrong eye that bent and curved like a 4-year-old's idea of a snake opened on the black ball, revealing a blue-ringed iris. The ball twisted and curved to face her. Her face contorted with disgust as a second eye opened on the sphere. Disgust turned to fear as a manic insane grin that could only be described as human, yet not human at the same time, grew upon the dark orb. The grinning sphere then span, uncurling itself into nothingness. Akin shook herself, getting her head back on straight. That was downright creepy, but what the hell was it supposed to achieve? This. Kin watched with horror as darkness rose from the ground, filling the space around him like black fins of death. Then the eyes and smiles opened. Not like before. Before made a face. Now they were just spread randomly around the sheet of blackness. It was clear. Whatever that leaf ninja was doing, he was creating something that should not be. The darkness then fell back the ground and rose up into Shikamaru's jacket. Now it begins. He said with a smile on his face. Do you think you can freak me out with some kind of genjutsu? Kin stammered, trying to hide the fear of the abomination she had just seen. Genjutsu? Shikamaru seemed offended. Look, I'm the Shika in the new Ino Shikacho unit. The Nara scratched his head. I only use ninjutsu, so why would I bother with anything so troublesome as genjutsu? Why are you telling me this? His opponent asked. Aren't you getting overconfident, revealing your secrets? Actually, I was hoping you'd forfeit. See, Shikamaru shrugged. There's someone in this room I really want to fight against, but I don't want that person to know too much about this beforehand or I'll get my ass kicked. So I'll ask you one more time. Surrender. Heh. Kin launched a flurry of needles. Surrender this. Shikamaru moved to dodge, but one needle grazed his neck. Goo-hoo. He grabbed his neck, feeling for blood. Thankfully, it missed his artery, but the room was going black. Blinding poison. You know, if you surrender now, I'll let you have the antidote. Nah, Shikamaru cricked his bleeding neck. I kindle like the darkness. I see better. Huh? Kin laughed at Shikamaru's ridiculous statement, but then the room grew dark, especially the back wall, almost black. An eye opened on the wall. A twisted, grotesque blue-ringed eye like before, only humongous. That's better. Shikamaru said, walking towards her with his eyes closed. Last chance. Kin scowled, then charged at her blinded foe. She was stopped however, when a black arm shot from the cracks in the floor, lifting her up by the neck. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time there was a very stupid boy who nobody liked. He was friends with a very clever but lazy boy. One day the stupid boy met a magical spirit who taught the stupid boy to be clever and strong, and the stupid boy who nobody liked trained in secret harder than anyone ever had before. So the clever and lazy boy went to this spirit one night when the boy slept and asked to be taught. The spirit told the boy was told to work hard in secret like the stupid boy. So he did, tricking everyone into thinking he was stupid and lazy while doing it. Now Shikamaru smiled. Guess which little boy stands before you now. You little Kin threw more poison needles, but more black arms rose from the ground, catching them. And guess which little boy I will fight in the next round. But the voice did not come from where her opponent stood. The voice was much closer than that. She looked at the arm grasping her throat and her eyes widened as she saw a grinning mouth filled with flawless teeth. Want a hint? The mouth asked her, almost sarcastically. Ah. The kunoichi fainted in terror, urine seeping through her trousers and skirt. The arm withdrew, dropping her on the ground as light returned to the room, the eye closing and vanishing. Shikamaru walked over to her and rummaged through her pockets, looking for an antidote to her poisoned needles. And the winner is Shikamaru. Hayate announced. There. Shikamaru pulled a bottle from the Sound Ninja's pouch and splashed some of the liquid onto the wound. His eyesight returned to see his unconscious opponent carried away by medics. She actually did it, huh? Nara. Off the Kof arena so the next match can be called. Yes sir. The next match was Niji against his cousin, Hinata. It was not a nice match to watch. Eventually, Kiba had to dive in so he could protect his teammate from death. Mind you, many of the other students were still in awe over Shikamaru. Damn man, since when could you do that? I told you, Chaoji. I trained in secret. I'm sure that goes beyond training. Ino was suspicious. I trained hard. For several years. Shikamaru looked at the screen. Chaoji, you're up. Chaoji's opponent was a mummified sound nin called Dosu. Chaoji fought well, but was eventually overpowered by the sound ninja. He had to go to hospital, but he fought as hard as he could and lost honorably. That was one thing Shikamaru noticed. It wasn't necessarily the stronger ninja who won each round, it was that some ninja styles beat others, simple as. Alright, next is Ino Yamanaka against Sakura Haruno. Woo. Catfight. Shut it, that's my girlfriend going to fight. Good luck. You say that like I need it. Sakura winked at him and walked down the stairs to her old friend and current enemy. You can't say that you won't like it though. Kid gets all hot and bothered at the thought of Temari and Haku having it out in a mud pit, you know. Sasu contemplated the image. It was nice. He then put the same image to Sakura and Ino. Even nicer. Who wouldn't? But this is different. Ready? Hayate asked. How? Fight. Smash. Sakura punched Ino straight back into the stands. Shikamaru jumped and grabbed her, absorbing the impact against the wall. Winner. Hayate announced. That's why. Too short, too much clothes, not enough mud. And that's what will happen to me if she catches me thinking about this. Maybe I'll tell Kit that when he wakes up. Don't you dare. Don't I dare what? Sakura asked. Crap. And nothing. Good job. Sakura didn't buy it. Next match is Kiba Inuyasaka against Kof Naruto Uzumaki. Hey, Naruto, you're up. Said Sasuke, hastily changing the subject. Snore. I don't think he's awake, I'll go wake him up. The Kyuubi left Sasuke, something he was thankful for. Naruto Uzumaki. Come on down. Naruto. Haku shook him. Wake up. No sleeping. Let me try. Temari made some seals and put her hand to Naruto's forehead. Brown mist left his body, but after a few seconds she had to stop for breath. Damn it, just how much did he drink last night? If Naruto Uzumaki does not enter the arena within 3 seconds he is disqualified. For you out. Mido Guy grabbed Naruto by the collar and threw him into the concrete below, leaving him sprawled on the floor. Kiba was a bit freaked out, as were most of the people in the room. You have no right to treat my pupil like that. Kakashi noted, sounding bored. Their student has no right to be so unyouthful. My student is so unyouthful today because he was too youthful last night. Oh. So Naruto was in that threesome in the forest. Rock Lee declared brightly. Shut up. Naruto shouted suddenly, with so much hate and force that it shocked everyone in the room. Sleep now. Naruto, I'm beginning the match. You might want to cough, get up. Shush. I'll kick your ass if you wake me up. Seems like he can fight. Heihachi shrugged, standing between the increasingly angry Kiba and the unconscious Naruto. Begin.